What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, April 3rd, I can speak. April 3rd of 2024. Before we jump into fun stuff, this is episode 118. If you are watching on YouTube, if you are watching on X, give us a subscription, smash the like button, and go and give us a follow. And spread this word of mouth. Like, share, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Go find us on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. So before we jump in to our guest, we have a fun little thing going on with our guest. So I'm excited to talk about that when we get him in. But quickly talk about last week's show. Dave, I think we had a freaking blast talking to whatever, Amy.
We did.
It was lots of fun. She is a really cool chick. We connected with the whole entire Jersey side of things. And, she's just a really fun person to talk about. We talked about just a variety, honestly. We got into, the child sex things and all the stuff going on with Quiet on the Set and just how she got started and things like that, being a social media personality. So it was absolutely lots of fun. This week, Dave, we're going to get back into a little more politics, and I'm excited to do it because our guest this week, and we will bring him on in, is Rob Noerr. He is a streamer and populist conservative, so he is welcome in this circle. Yeah. What's going on, Rob?
It is fantastic to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week, Alex and Dave. Doing great. Just got off work, so got to spend time with my family. Big Pittsburgh Pirates fan. So they're 5-0 starting off the season, but they were losing Yankees when I came on. So.
I'm a Yankees fan, so we're kind of in the same boat. We're both off to a super hot start. Dave's a Yankees fan too. So, that's awesome. That's good. We have baseball happiness here. I wasn't expecting that with Garrett Cole going down for us, but it is always nice. So quick question. How much love do you guys have for Andrew McCutchen still over in Pittsburgh? Because
love him. Yeah.
He seems like a guy that can do no wrong, right?
Yeah, he could go 0 for the rest of the season, which he did go like 0 for 12 to start. But yeah, I mean, I think he embodies. For me, I'm a Pittsburgh sports fan. Love the Penguins, love the Steelers. But the Pirates have always been my team. They had 20 years of losing season. I used to joke, the losing seasons of the Pirates could drink. They're old enough to drink. That's how many years it was. And McCutchen represented that turnaround. Yep. He was the face of the franchise when they finally had winning seasons, when they finally made a playoff appearance. And he did it the right way. He seemed like someone who genuinely loved the city, who genuinely loved the fans and understood what the fans went through. So, to see him come back, even if they would underachieve, which, I don't think anyone's predicting them to go on his World Series run or anything, but even if they underachieve, I think the fans, it's just a feel-good story to have seen him come back. So.
Yeah, I remember This is ESPN commercial where he walked into the room. He's like, plunder the Lux.
Yeah,
all the mascots come out.
Yeah, he's great. I think he epitomized. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I forget what he named his daughter, but it's something like Steel or something that had to do with the city of Pittsburgh. So it wasn't surprising to see him come back. And I think just the way baseball goes and the longevity of it, of course he leaves to get a bigger contract. But I think his best years is an athlete were in Pittsburgh as well. So I think there's probably a nostalgia feeling coming back home as well.
And he was a legitimate, borderline 5-tool guy. He almost had it all. I think a little bit with the power, you wanted a little more, even though he had some great years hitting for power.
But he couldn't steal, which was so weird because he's fast.
So fast. Yeah, no, but you know what though? That's an art form. That's an art form. Ricky Henderson, while he was fast, also was just incredibly intuitive. So it's it's an art form. And listen, I went through probably a decade of the Yankees that aren't named Brett Gardner that couldn't steal. Okay, Brett was the only guy. They couldn't have a single fucking person in the farm that could steal. So outside of baseball talk, back in the sports podcasting mode. But we're gonna jump into the politics side now. Something cool going on for our listeners right now. You are also witnessing as Rob is watching here. We're on his stream as well. So hello to all of Rob's fans and everyone over there. Yes. We're pumped to have him on. And we were talking a little bit beforehand, and I've seen some of the things that you do. Now, you like to debate. Yeah. That is something about you. So talk a little bit. Who have you debated? You debate a lot of leftists. I don't call them liberals because liberals aren't a bad thing. Being a liberal is actually a good thing if you are an American. I call them all leftist, collectivists, all that type of stuff. Who have you debated? What have give me a favorite one. What's something that's gone on?
My favorite person to debate is a left-wing streamer named Destiny for two reasons. One,
he's going through it right now, though. He is going through it.
He definitely is. However, I think it's good for me, right? Because I still haven't. See, as much as Destiny and his audience wants to hate me because I could wreck him and I wreck all these lefties, I'm actually a likable person, and they really hate that. So for a long time, what happens is if you're a big left-wing streamer, you have to think when you're debating someone, what is the benefit to you? I'm a small-time streamer. I maybe have 50 to 100 people watching. So if you're a left-wing person, like, say, Sam Cedar, what incentive does Sam Cedar have to debate me? None. If it'd be like being to use a sports analogy, like if you're a boxer and you hear about this young up-and-coming heavyweight that's just knocking people out, you don't fight him because it doesn't give you a draw.
You know what, though? There's also a reason why Sam Cedar sticks to, like, mostly just really staunch, retarded libertarians. Like, not the smart ones, the retard libertarians, because he knows that they're easy to own, right? If you go against a well-thought-out conservative, or even, like, a legitimate libertarian, like a Dave Smith, or Joe Labonte, or even, like, Michael Malice being, like, an anarchist libertarian, hating everyone, he would get destroyed. So it's like they're smart with who they pick, but I give Destiny credit. Destiny takes all comers. And I thought he was really good on Jordan Peterson. I watched that whole entire interview, and I thought, it's hard to be mean to Jordan Peterson in person, I believe. So I feel like he's so disarming because you're not going to be mean to Kermit. Like, nobody is mean to Kermit the Frog. It's like you just don't do that. So
he's helping you clean your room. Like, what are you really going to yell at him? Yeah. I mean, for me, it's not necessarily that, like, a Sam Cedar would be afraid to debate me because he'd think he'd lose. It's that he doesn't see a benefit. Now, the exception that people make, they'll debate someone they think they could wreck. Or here's another thing. If they could smear you with general terms. So, for example, you'll see someone like Nick Fuentes get a lot of debates. Why? Because even if Fuentes would crush them on whatever, it could be a topic that's tangential to anything Fuentes cares about. Should we sign an infrastructure bill, theoretically? Yeah. What they know at the end of the day, they'll be able to go, yeah, but you're a racist.
Yep.
And their audience will be like, that's it.
They do this.
Right. And so they can't do that to me. Right. They try, but it's like I have thousands upon thousands of hours of material of me live streaming, of things that I've written blog. But go ahead, find me talking about something racist. Find me saying something objectionable in that manner. And they can't do it. So the smear they try to go with me is I'm a conspiracy theorist or something like that. But Destiny, he goes on these bigger shows. I think it's good for people like me that, I'll be honest, if I hadn't debated Destiny, I probably wouldn't have gone on Tim Pool's show.
That's true.
Which introduced me to a bigger audience, But there's a ton of, we could talk for 6 hours about ridiculous, I remember during COVID, I debated a panel. There was a girl from Australia there who told me that she saw no problem with countries locking down and no one working for 5 years at least. And I said, do you live on a farm? She said, no. And I said, well, how are you going to get food? And she's like, oh, okay, we'll leave the farms continue. And I was like, but if you don't live there, how are you going to get it? Okay, we'll leave the truck drivers. And I was like, okay, but then where are they driving? Directly to your house? Oh, I guess the grocery stores. Where are they getting gas? Well, I guess we'll leave the gas. And it's just, that was
what a Western answer. The grocery stores, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being such a Western person that we, like in the West, are so pampered with supermarkets? All you have to do is go down into South America. Some parts of it, like our family's from Ecuador. There are parts of Ecuador where you go like, what do you mean a supermarket? We just have the, fresh food market down in the square. Like they're still doing that type of stuff where here in America, we're like learning about that and watching shows that we watch Aladdin as they walk through the square. And it's like, that is still the world that a lot of people live in. We are just so pampered that, you get those types of answers where it's like, no, we'll just leave the supermarket. God forbid Whole Foods doesn't get to be there. And it's like, no, that's not how the world works. And that's one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed debating some of these leftists, is that they don't live in the real world. They don't understand what it is. And they're so narcissistic that they don't understand how to be grateful for where we are and what we have. Like, have you found that that's such like an easy way to like kind of not, of course, eyes, but like get them like in a way where get them?
Of course, we're talking in generalities. There could always be specific, but absolutely, you're right in generalities. The lefties I debate basically aren't people that live in sort of the real world that we live in, like having children, working a 9 to 5, going out into the the real world. And most of them are miserable too. They're just not happy people. I'll give you a slight example. 2 quick examples. I debated a communist one time, and I said, but listen, I complain a lot about society. I do. I talk a lot about corruption and other sort of issues. I was like, but can we admit that being alive today in the United States of America puts us amongst the most 1% of privileged people that ever existed? And this person looked at me with a straight face and meant this sincerely and said, living in the United States right now is the worst time that has ever been in human history.
Well, the issue there is debating a communist is actually debating someone in the far right at this point. When it comes to the far left now.
Yeah, with the horse. Yeah, so I mean, how do you engage in someone who's that far out of reality? It's like a simple reading, like Khmer Rouge, like but the Holodomor. Like we could just in the 20th century point to a bunch of situations that were objectively worse in every way. Another example I could give: just last week, I was debating a big left-wing streamer named Hutch, and he wanted to. It was supposed to be an interview about Tim Pool, turned into a debate about sort of indoctrination of children in schools, particularly trans issues. And he was talking a lot about these bills that you hear that say, should teachers be forced to tell parents if their kids come out as trans? And this is in a specific example. If your kid asks the school to refer them as the biological sex that they weren't born as, then the parents have to be informed. And so he keeps going into these hypotheticals. But what if, as the teacher, you think that your parent will beat them and blah, blah, blah. And I go through all the hypotheticals. Then at the end, I ask him my hypothetical and was like, let's say that the following occurred. Let's say that your child came out as trans and you're a good parent. You would have got them the therapy or whatever, you're a good lefty, so the drugs and the gender surgery, whatever. But whatever he would consider, the person I'm debating would consider would be good. But because the school never told you, you never got your kid that help. For 3 years, the school knew. And then your kid does the worst and self-harms in a final way. What would you say about the school? And he's like, well, I wouldn't blame them. And I said, do you have kids? And he was like, no. I was like, exactly. That's why you need to shut up, because you don't have any clue what it's like being a parent. And that's just, if anyone, you don't even have to be a parent to understand that level of pain. If the school withheld information that could have led to the safety of your child or the safety of your friend's child or whatever, and they intentionally withheld that, which led to a horrible consequence, you would be rightfully furious. But they don't get it. And the truth is, they want to prescribe their, like, Jordan Peterson talks about this when he's describing George Orwell writing this book, The Road to Wigan Pier, right? He says that the first half of this book is basically he goes to this place, Wigan Pier, where these workers are working in terrible conditions. And that's what the socialists that paid him to write this book were like, of course, that's what we want you to do. The second half of the book is basically Orwell saying, but these socialists don't care about these workers. Exactly. They don't care at all. What the socialists care about is there are people economically and culturally above them. And they want to attack them. And the way to attack them is by identifying with the causes of the people below. But they don't care about the people below. They only care about tearing down. It's the Bernie Sanders effect of economics, right? What is an immoral amount of money to have? $1 more than anyone else.
$1
right?
more than, yes, exactly.
Bernie will always be moral. The amount of, I am now a millionaire. It is entirely moral for me to have these millions of dollars. Anyone with $1 more than me, and that's how they believe. They have no love for this world. They have anger for this world. And so they want to project that out onto the rest of us. And what you see on the right overwhelmingly, and again, there's obviously instances where this isn't true, but on the right, what you see is people that want to be left alone, people that are happy, people that want to start a family, people that want to watch sports without being indoctrinated with, whatever social garbage that they want to put down your throat, or want to watch a movie.
That needs to end. We need to stop having people that want to be left alone, because then those are the ones that don't get involved, right? The leftists want to be in your house. They want to be telling you what to do. And there's a reason why they're active, why they're going where there's 200 of them going to swing your local council votes, why they are just this group. And it's because conservatives are, you know what? I follow Poso, or I watch, Jesse Kelly at night, or I watch this and that, and they're getting the word out. So someone else will do it. Like, there's other people out there that listen, and I'm on X and I see all this going on. I don't have to get involved. And the thing is, if you're watching this right now and you're listening, you do have to get involved. Go as something as small as, and I know this hurts because Republicans suck, but go get involved in your Republican committee, your local committee. So then you have a say and you have a voice over who is running. That's a big thing. Who is running? Because if you don't get there and you're letting a whole bunch of 70, 80, 90-year-olds decide who's running, they're going to put the Bush lights. They're going to put the people that they considered conservative, where, I think all three of us are more on the populist side here, where we would want to see something different. And one of the things that I'm over here in Dutchess County. I just joined my committee not too long ago, because another problem is I didn't know they fucking existed. You have to go ask around, where leftists will go and recruit everywhere. The conservatives, you have to ask someone who you may think is Republican if there's something going on. But, we went up there. I was over at our county committee meeting, and we have to give endorsements for this upcoming election. And Mike Lawler popped up. And I don't like Mike Lawler in New York. I think he's pretty bad. I think he just goes with whatever the uniparty wants to. And I get that comes with being a young guy and probably not having a ton of money to fight back, like Matt Gaetz, who had the money in the beginning. But at the same time, we have to stop putting these people in because we just want to win the seat. It's bullshit.
Yep.
It's bullshit that, we can't lose this seat. What do you mean we can't lose this seat? We're losing in Congress every day when they're there. So what's the difference?
That's exactly it. I ran for Congress myself. So 2 things to say on this. First, for Senate, we had in Pennsylvania, Republicans lost to basically a human vegetable named John Fetterman because they put Dr. Oz.
Who's absolutely based for some reason.
I was going to say, at this point, Fetterman's a better choice than
Fetterman's healing, and he's becoming a conservative. It's weird.
It's like, I think he's having problems with his wife, and he's coming to his senses a little. But
he was a communist as a mayor. He was worse than Bernie.
Oh, he was terrible.
I did see someone put out on Twitter that the lump took over, and the lump is actually
that's
now, and that's why he's different.
You'll see him like start to twitch a little, But I mean, they picked Dr. Oz, and I met Dr. Oz at this Republican event. It was kind of funny because you had to wait in line, and I had something I would like to tell him. And so I'm the next person in line, and he's got like an assistant who's a younger guy. And he goes, "Hey, you got a phone on? You want me to take a picture with you with the doctor?" I was like, "Sure." And so he takes my camera out, and there's a picture of me shaking Dr. Oz's hand. What I'm telling him is, I can't stand you. I did not support. And then all of a sudden his assistant's like frowning, like, uh-oh. And I was like, listen, I'm still going to support you because you're better than Fetterman. And I hope you prove me wrong. But the problem is we keep bringing in people like you that are sort of outsiders, that are these wealthy people. What do you know about my people that are struggling in my town where all the factories left, where no one has a job anymore? And I was like, so hopefully you prove me wrong. But I just want to let you know that I don't have high expectations.
And he didn't, because he was an abortion supporter, and he still is. And here's the issue. Here's the fault of Donald Trump. I support Trump. I know David does. I want him to win. But if you're nice to Donald Trump, if you give to his campaign and then you run, he's going to support you. And that's the thing with Dr. Oz. He was his friend, and he wanted his friend to get in. And, you could see from a mile away that Oz was an awful choice. You had Kathy Barnett right there.
Right.
Who was a fucking rock star. And, she was working on Vivek Ramaswamy's campaign. I can imagine that that's one of the main reasons why that campaign was so on message. Not because only because Vivek was really smart, but he had someone like Kathy who's incredibly intelligent as well, who I hope runs again for something, because that woman should be around.
She's great.
She's amazing.
And in fact, I interviewed Kathy on the show, and I bet she would be interested in talking to you. And I would like to reach out to her. So another person that ran that was better, I still preferred Kathy. That was my choice. But Carla Sands ran, who was she was better. But and then who was the other person? Dave McCormick, who's sort of this billionaire that doesn't even live in the state. Well, who did they choose to run this time? Dave McCormick's running again. So it's just the same rehashing of people. Anyways, the point is, on 2022, when Dr. Oz loses, I had some stuff going on with my family, nothing bad or anything, so I was unable to stream that night. But I was talking to some people involved in state level politics, and they're like, what should our agenda be? And I said, everyone involved in the Pennsylvania GOP at the higher level needs removed. They have failed so miserably. Like, even if they really care about the GOP and really care about the country, they should resign. We shouldn't have to force them out.
We're going through the same thing in New York. We really are.
It's all the same cast of characters. Going into the 2024 election, there's been no major changes. It's the same people. And they treat someone like me like I'm a curiosity. So when I'm out there being a firebrand for the GOP, they're like, great. So I ran for Congress. And what I wanted to tell your audience is this, right? I'm a good speaker. I did debate in school. I knew I was a good speaker, but I thought I would be outclassed because I had no political experience ever holding an office. So I'm running for national Congress. It was a special election. And so I decided to run. There was like 24 people running. Most of the people had been involved at least in state level politics for years and years and years. So I thought I was going to be blown away. Within the first event we went to, I was head and shoulders more intelligent politically than every other person that was running. And I'm not just saying that because I'm biased, which I am biased, but it was evident. Like, for example, they had no idea what the 10th Amendment was. So like they were talking about marijuana and whether or not it should be legalized. So the first question's all about government overreach. Second question's about government legalizing marijuana. And I'm like, well, haven't you read the 10th Amendment? Does it mention marijuana in the Constitution? No. Okay, then it's up to the state level. If you want to ban marijuana, fine, run for state Congress.
But now
what does that have to do with federal?
Now you become a wacko because it's like, oh, there's a guy that carries a pocket Constitution.
Yeah,
so,
this guy that cares. Oh man,
wait a minute. Like, it should be required reading. Once you get into high school, all 4 years, you should have to read the Constitution in full. At least for those 4 years, because then you would at least have an understanding of it, and not just like what they do in most high schools is let's read the Bill of Rights and let's get to know the Bill of Rights, and then we'll kind of gloss over everything else. And it's like, no, you asshats, no. Yeah. I want to jump here. So one of our chats, we have someone VI99DA. I don't know if that's Vigda. I don't know. So you also debated Vosh. And you got him to admit that he'd be okay with an 8-month-old abortion. Now, Vosh sucks. So we can just get that out there. He's somebody that I wouldn't want on this show because I feel like Vosh isn't a fake human. I think he is in the Hassan, kind of Hassan Piker area of say what I need to say in order to stay relevant to my audience type of guy. So me and Dave, we've discussed, and Dave's like, nah, I don't want him on here. Like, and I agree. Vosh is kind of.
I mean, unless we somehow get the whole show to be a bit about horses and shit,
right?
That'd be funny. But unless there's some kind of comedic thing to it,
it was even. So I would.
And then the idea of being on real quick. The 3-year-old can decide they're trans. You got him to admit that as well. Yeah. And thank you everyone for commenting. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you there.
When I was doing Tim Pool's show, I was supposed to do the morning show. I ended up doing the evening show as well. The morning show is supposed to be a debate show. And so the idea was they were like, we're going to find you. I wanted to debate the Krasenstein brothers. I told them they could both come. That would be fair. Yeah, it still wouldn't be fair for them, but I would debate both of them at the same time. It would be no problem. Destiny was someone who was mentioned, Sam Cedar, people like that. Or Shank, I would debate Shank. Or Hassan. Vosh is someone I wouldn't want to debate at that point. And I've wanted to debate Vosh one-on-one. He won't debate me one-on-one. He pretends he doesn't know me because I've debated him on panels and made him look foolish, so he doesn't want any part of it. And the panel, you could hide. You can meme your way through it. You could hide behind other people. One-on-one, that's harder to do. The reason I wouldn't debate Vosh now is I think he's earned stewing in his little horse-addled world. I don't want to go on Tim Pool's show and talk about politics and help him matriculate out of that. You go ahead and simmer in the world you've created, sir. I have nothing to say about it as far as I find it grotesque, whatever. He could do what he wants. Aside from all that, why I find Vosh despicable is 2 things. One, because he accuses others of what he does even more than the average Democrat. So he uses this term stochastic terrorism. And he'll say anyone, for example, that talks about like we have a problem with saying that 3-year-olds can transition. That's really inspiring people to commit terroristic acts.
Iron law of woke projection. James Lindsay says it all the freaking time.
That's right. Now, I happened to hear Vosh on a debate talk about the people Patriot Prayer. These were people that would protest, have permits to protest in Portland, Oregon, who are a right-wing group. Famously, there was an incident where they did a protest and one of the people were leaving and an Antifa member shot him and killed him. He killed
this. Then interviewed later.
That's right. So Vosh is then having this discussion with this lefty, and they're talking about, he's saying like, we need to arm ourselves, which I actually don't have a problem with. I'm in support of the Second Amendment. I have no problem with people that I disagree with politically saying we too value our rights to self-defense. Perfectly fine with that, right? Absolutely. But then he starts saying, wouldn't you have stopped Hitler before he came to power? That's what's happening now with these right-wingers that have a trans genocide. It's like, okay, what do you say? Then he flat out says it. He says, I want a world where people could take shots at those Patriot Prayer fucks out their windows. So he's literally calling for the shooting, which then like a day later, some dude gets, now Vosh is saying this after that dude got shot. I don't know if he realized that dude got shot or not. But the point is like, how could you accuse others? For example, I decry all political violence. If there's right-wing political violence, I'll call it out. I don't have the time of day for it. Yet he will call for political violence and it will occur and he'll say, that's not my fault. But if me who decries political violence, if I say I have a problem with teaching kindergartners, about trans issues, he'll say, oh, that's stochastic terrorism. Now you're responsible for any violence that occurs against trans people. So I hate him I hate him. And I find his messaging to not just be wrong, but to be irresponsible to the point where it could radicalize people to do terrible things. And the other thing is the way he debates, he had this debate with this communist who I'm not a fan of their politics much either, named Jackson Hinkle. And it was about
Jackson
serious.
sucks.
Yeah. So believe it or not, Jackson's the good guy in this debate. That's how bad Vosh is.
Yes.
Right. The debate is about Assad gassing his own people. Basically, the argument is this: there was a whistleblower for the OPCW, which is sort of this international body that does chemical weapons investigations for the UN. And so they send this group in to Syria, and the group comes back, and the head of the group's like, we don't see evidence that Assad gassed his people. Like, they're basically intuiting it might have been staged, right? And so this would look really bad for the United States and the West, who then bombed Syria in response to this. And so they basically fired the whistleblower, brought in a new guy, and the new guy was like, yeah, Assad did this. And so Jackson's argument is like, we don't have evidence that Assad gassed his people. And Vosh's argument is, yes, we do. Assad's a bad guy. And if you watch that debate, I reviewed this debate. There's something very interesting that happens like 2/3 of the way through the debate. Now, Jackson's entire argument's hinged on this one whistleblower. Vosh just says unprompted, yeah, but you read that afterwards that whistleblower agrees with me. He ended up writing that actually he agreed. And Jackson stumbles. He's like, oh, because that's it. The debate's over. Then Jackson, right? But luckily, Jackson's then's like, well, can you show me that source?
Exactly.
And Vosh is like, moving on to the next topic. Now, what he did there, and it's something incredibly unethical that him and many people on the left do a lot, which they'll just wholesale make up a lie, just completely lie. And there's no, if they get called out in the lie, oh, just a mistake moving forward. If they don't, well, then we win.
Exactly.
Trump said drink bleach. Trump said Nazis are good people. And they know that a plurality of people will just hear their allegation and believe it. And then people like me that over and over, I'm like, that's not what happened. Let's go through the script. Let's see what they said. It doesn't matter. And so to me, that illustrates, I think Destiny is, and many other people that I debate in the left are biased incredibly much. And their bias comes from one thing. Their entire political view is Orange Man bad. So they might be a liberal, they might be a Democrat, they might believe in socialized medicine, all of this stuff, whatever. They're willing to throw that all away to take down Trump. That's just the truth.
Which is wild because Trump is a Democrat.
That's
if you go back into the late 90s, Trump is a Democrat. And that's just how far the the Overton window has moved, right? That we are rooting for a Democrat as conservatives.
And I do want to say real quick, not to just hang on the Vosh topic, but I do want to say, like you said, Rob, with the rest of the lefties that you debate, most of them, I should say, they actually have a bias, but I wouldn't necessarily call them like really bad faith or like evil in a way. Like Vosh himself, basically, he's said it that he just says whatever he can to win the argument.
That's right.
So he is unironically a form, like that's a form of evil that you are doing actually heinous things there.
And I have a bias. We all have a bias.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Let's say this is a line of like, I'm backwards here, left versus right? And so this is being a lefty and here's being a righty, and a story comes out and it's good for the left. Or I'm sorry, good for the right, or it's good for the left, right? Well, we have a lens of our bias and how we look at that story. And so if the story is just kind of in the middle, we're going to look at it favorably for the right. The key thing to do is try to shrink that bias enough so that you can sort of engage in a shared reality with other people. But we're always going to have that bias. It's inevitable. You can't get rid of it. And so if there's a story that's literally right down the middle, 50-50, a righty might say, I look at this favorable for the right. A lefty might say, but if it's almost overwhelmingly bad for the right, I'm willing to admit that. Yeah, this doesn't look good. So I could, for example, I'll give you an example. The 2022 election. There were people saying that was a big win for Republicans, right? Because they took back that. No, it wasn't. No. Right? You're just wrong. That was not a big win for Republicans.
That was people trying to save face after going, red wave. And here's the thing. Out of anyone, whenever you hear, we heard the blue wave. What was that? 6-8 years ago? Something like that. Anytime you hear political pundits calling for a wave, it will always be disappointing.
Yeah, that's totally true. That's good advice for the predictive. But so so I don't have like Vosh is, like you said, once you're willing to admit, like, I'll straight up lie to you just on my side. But what's the utility of debating something like that? Now, I think that most of these people I debate on the left, someone like Destiny or these other people, like I said, they hate Trump so much that they make that. And do you ever notice, like, when you're talking to someone who views everything through the lens of race? So if you're debating Ibram Kendi, for example, they're going to assume everything you say has to do with race.
Good luck getting him to debate, by the way.
Well, of course. Yeah. But if you could take an innocent sports story and be like, I'm cheering for Iowa over LSU in the women's game there. They're like, oh, racist.
Yep.
And you're like, what? Yeah, you're racist. And the reason is they're projecting because they look at everything through the lens of race. That's true of Trump as well. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't people on the right that have an over infatuation with Trump and will never criticize. I criticize Trump all the time.
Oh, there's some people that are like, listen, the far zealot maggots, I was going to call maggots, but MAGA people are annoying. They are annoying. They're as annoying as the Sims were, but they're also not any less annoying than the Obama zealots were.
Right.
It's like we didn't live through the Obama when he was first coming up, when you had people orgasming on freaking screen with Chris Wallace, not Chris Wallace, Chris Matthews, when he was having an orgasm
shiver up
on
his
screen, shiver up his leg. And then you had people like fainting like he's Michael Jackson. It's like, we forget, everyone's like, oh, it's such a cult for MAGA. And it was like, I feel like Obama was even worse.
I had to see that damn tan suit picture again on Twitter yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how are you still pushing this?
What a gaslight. Yeah, what a gaslight situation that was. But yeah, so it's certainly true. But the reality is the people that are focused on Trump way more are the left. Everything in their life politically centers around Trump. So they assume that of us. So, for example, my big issue that I talk about is I'm a single issue voter. I think corruption is the biggest issue because if we have institutions that are unelected behind the scenes, like Chuck Schumer said, the FBI, you can't criticize the FBI if you're Trump, the most powerful elected free world leader in the world. You can't criticize this agency that you're in charge of because they'll find 6 ways of getting back at you. That's ridiculous. That should have every right, left, Democrat, Republican, every single person should have been like, whoa, what? And that's exactly what happened.
How is he not at minimum censured for that comment? Like, that is a censurable comment because, like, at minimum, that a censure means nothing, but at least it's a political slap on the wrist. Like, hey, that's something really stupid to say. Like, at a minimum, stop giving away the game.
Well, we don't necessarily have to get into it, but kind of since its inception, the FBI has been that way.
Oh, very
So like we don't have to go deep into that, but it's honestly, Chuck is pretty correct in that statement.
Well, that's just it. What are you going to censor if we're telling the truth? Who would censor them? The Democrats? That's who would have. Shh, don't tell. Like that's basically.
I want to jump into something, Rob, because I feel like we can talk about the people you debated, and it's awesome. But I do want to jump into some of the stuff that we want to talk about real quick. Did you celebrate the Day of Visibility?
I did. So I was telling my audience before we came on, the town I grew up in that's like 10 minutes away. You see, you guys, you bigots think you're smart. Let me tell you what happened. The power went out in the town. You know what happened? A transformer blew. Because you all against the Trans Day of Visibility. Now we have electricians that aren't working on the transformers. So good for you. No, I didn't celebrate the Trans Day of Visibility. How many days do we need
Did you see there's April now? They're doing Gapril.
April and then June's Pride Month. I mean, so I do this character.
April's funnier than Pride Month.
Yeah,
I would actually get behind Gapril, the debauchery and all the shit, and like I would actually wear a shirt that says Gapril because that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's not bad actually. But no, on Pride Month in years past, I've done trans positive, Rob. And I've actually been kicked off debate panels because
David's transitioning. He's been transitioning.
Great. That's fantastic.
What's your name this week, Sarah?
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah. Well, here's the truth, right? And you can ask trans positive Rob. This is totally true. Trans people are literally gods on earth. They can't be wrong about anything. No. Even if it seems like they're wrong, that's just because your cis stupid ass brain can't comprehend how great trans people are. So we need to make sure. I won't be satisfied until every space is filled with 100% trans people.
And here's the thing too. And this isn't a caveat I should have to say, but I don't give a fuck about trans people. I care about the fake ones that are politicizing it, because the people that are out here being psychos, the ones that are sitting there trying to take over drag queens, because drag queens don't exist anymore. Drag queens used to be a thing. Now they're conflating drag queens with trans people. And of course, because you're not allowed to be gay anymore. Gay doesn't exist. Gay is not real. The gay people fought this whole time to let it but not be a choice. And then you have people that are gender switching and now it's a choice. But it's like the trans people that just want to be trans and left the fuck alone. I don't care. If you're an adult, you want to do what you want to do to yourself. I do not care. The ones that we're seeing out front aren't real. You're Dylan Mulvaney. That's not a trans person. Any of the people out there, like, they're not real trans because they are sitting here trying to do it for political reasons. They are leftists. They are doing it for the game. They are doing it to create that dialectic in order to get you into that and then get you struggle to admit what they want you to admit, right?
That's exactly right. And listen, and like their own arguments don't even make sense. They contradict themselves. So, for example, I'll debate people and they'll say, you tell me, if I just ask you, are you born trans or is it something that you socially get into?
I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way.
Right. Okay. So seriously, they can't agree, right? Because a lot of them will say, well, you're born trans. And we're like, okay, well, how do you prove it? And they'll say, well, there's interesting new medical studies that are coming out that show we can take brain scans, right? And we can see from a brain scan, and it'll say, let's arguably say that's true. Okay. Then before we give anyone any benefits from being trans, let's brain scan them. And if they say they're trans and their brain doesn't show it, then they're liars, right? Do you think they're going to say that? Do you think the left's going to be like, you're right? Of course not. Of course they'll be like, well, no, that's a different type of trans. And they're never going to give an inch on this.
Well, how do they know they're trans? How do they know? Because they can't define what a man and a woman is. So how do you know that you're the different sex if you don't believe in a binary sex? So it's one thing that's just completely contradictory. Listen, if they said, hey, the binary sexes exist, so that's why I know what a woman typically wants to act like. Hence, I'm acting like a woman as a man, so I exist. I still think you're a little bit of a loon. You're suffering from gender dysphoria. I think we should get you help, but whatever. You want to do what you want to do, fine. But to sit there and in one token be like, oh, gender is not real. The sex binary is fake. But then they'll also go, you can't tell me I'm not a woman as a man. Doesn't make any fucking sense. It really doesn't make any sense at all. But
I would say the biggest thing, though, is that even if it doesn't make sense, you kind of have to see it in a way. I mean, it shows itself really when you look at the countries, both US, England, wherever in the West, that you're really just going against foot soldiers and other people of another nation at this point, because they even have their own flag. And it shows that they've basically taken over. It keeps changing, but it's always going to be hung up on every single day that they decide it's going to be hung up. So you got to understand. Like, it's not going to make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. All that has to make sense is they get power.
For me, it all comes back to this idea of cultural Marxism. So I believe, in a nutshell, this is what 100%. I believe, as quick as possible, that the real people with power, the unelected bureaucrats in corporate America, media, academia, entertainment industry, all of these institutions, they want sort of a globalist government. That's what they want, because they want a neo-feudalism where they're the people with power and the rest of us are dependent on them, just like the serfs of the medieval times. That's what they want. The biggest impediment to that are first world nations with people that are middle class, people that we used to have a robust middle class in this country. The United States is the biggest example of this.
That's why they hate capitalism, because it creates the middle class.
That's right. And so what they want to do is to make everyone, a handful of us, to join them, not many, and the rest of us to become dependent on them. And once you're dependent on them, this isn't even a right-wing view necessarily. You can go back to postmodernists like Michel Foucault that talked about the idea of biopower. Once you're dependent on the government to turn the power on, that also means they can switch the switch off whenever they want. And that's the truth. That's what they want.
Look at California with the
that's right.
Literally.
They are forcing people to turn their power off. And if you are on a ring grid, they just turn you the fuck off because the government utilities do it. You don't have a say in what goes on there.
Right.
But
and so
happening.
So national pride is something they need to dispense with as well. So that's why they have pride in flags. They have their own nations that they build in that aren't necessarily the country.
The cops just busted a Chaz zone in New York, I think, yesterday.
Yep,
I saw it. Finally took one down, and it's been going on forever. It's ridiculous.
And so what you see is, how do you make people, how do you demoralize people? They used to say with Marxism, you would just say there's haves and have-nots. But what they realized is, why just do that with economics? You could do it with race. You could do it with gender. You could do it with ability, right? And religion. And so every single group that you could categorize them, one group's oppressors and the rest are oppressed. And so one of the reasons that there's such a contagion of trans people, particularly amongst white people, particularly amongst white men, is if you've grown up being told everything about the way you were born is oppressor, it's evil, it's something to be ashamed of. How do you, and the biggest currency we have at this point is victimhood. How do you claim victimhood? Well, one of the biggest groups of victim that you could be is trans. And so that's what happens. And so you identify as trans, and I know, I've known this happened to people in real life, that they were basically looked over upon, their social circle, they were with a bunch of lefties, they're a white man, no one gave a shit about them. All of a sudden they're trans, they're top of the social circle. Now they're the big dog. Now they're the one pointing their finger, and that's what's going on. And so you fight back because, like, this is horseshit, right? Like, I'm with you. I kind of feel like if I have someone who's schizophrenic, by the way, if you didn't know this, my job is I work with people with developmental disabilities, adults. So like
I used to work with autistic adults as well. I did that for 2.5 years.
Yeah, so I have a big heart for people,
Yep.
and I've worked with people that are schizophrenic, that hear voices. It's something that
Are you guys doing person-centered language as well? It's not an autistic person. It is a person with autism. They're not a biter. They are a person that bites. Did you get that whole entire
we are
training as well?
Yes, without getting much into it for fear of losing my job. We are
Yeah,
as
no, I could talk more because I'm a former employee. So
yeah,
you can just nod your head.
yeah. I mean, you get that stuff that comes right where they is. Now I do love what I do, and I love the people I work with. But you know what if I'm talking to someone and they say, I hear voices in my head that say this, I'm not going to treat them like garbage because of that. Of course not. Yeah. But I'm not going to believe the voices are real.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to, if you're trans, I'll sit there and have a beer and watch the game with you. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're trans. I don't even I have friends that most of my friends are straight. I don't like the big man stories. I hooked up with this chick last night. Don't care. Uninteresting to me. I don't want to hear you hooking up with the dude either. To me, we're watching the game. We're having fun. We're out to whatever we're doing. Same if you're trans. The problem we all have is that you're taking it further. You're not saying that you want to be tolerated. You're saying that you want to be celebrated. And I'm not celebrating the schizophrenic like, yay, your voices are great. That's fantastic. No, it is a social contagion. It is an illness. It's something that we shouldn't glorify. It's something that we should seek to treat, and to not treat people like crap that happen to have this affliction. But we shouldn't be encouraging people that don't have the affliction whatsoever to claim they do, because now there's social benefit, and that's what's happening. And there's a reason behind it.
And INDEI. It's what you described as the INDEI, and your cultural Marxism was what Gramsci described. He didn't coin the long march through the institutions, but it's exactly what he talked about, which getting through there. And he was a devout Marxist, because it is a religion. So yeah, sorry, Dave, I cut you off.
No, you're good. I did want to say you really hit on one term that's specifically very apt to describing what is going on and why, you get the whole basically incel the trans pipeline. That's a phrase thrown around. But celebrated. That is the one, because as a normal person, as a white man or whatever you want to put it, you're not celebrated ever, and that's not a bad thing. Really, you're not celebrated much, and that's not a bad thing. That's a normal thing.
Well, men aren't celebrated typically unless we do something of
merit, which is how it should be.
Which is where every other group, we have to celebrate them because they don't do shit. Honestly, my thing is, if you feel the need, and I'm getting so tired, and this is an off-topic rant real quick. I am so fucking tired of having days dedicated to jobs or weeks dedicated to jobs. If your job was that important, you shouldn't have to tell us to appreciate you. I'm tired. Listen, nurses, I'm tired of you. I'm sorry. Nurses do a lot of really good shit. They do. They're awesome. They're needed in the medical field. But if you need to sit there, and if social media is blown up at we need to appreciate them, then maybe you're not as important as you think you are. If you're forcing appreciation, and I hate all of it. I hate all of the appreciation weeks. We went through a show one time, Dave, about the dedication days. They're all stupid. I hate the history months. I think they're all dumb at this point. So I'm tired of all of it. And I'm one of the
heroes.
And I'm one of the
remember under COVID? Here's a story for you. They're heroes. My father-in-law is a truck driver. He kept working. He was the one making sure.
Are
you a hero? Where was the truck driver hero?
No.
What happened was, when you got pissed off in places like Canada, they treated you like a damn terrorist.
Well,
there was no talk of heroes there, right? Yeah. That was terrorists. Right? But the nurses doing TikTok dances, heroes.
And the thing that we learned during COVID is everyone that used to work is essential. Because our economies all got fucked. So the essential workers just working didn't help us. Because you know what, too? Those Home Depot employees and those Lowe's employees were really essential. But your small business wasn't. But those big box stores, they were all essential.
Yeah.
Which is, one of the things that, we learned. And I talk to a lot of normal people in my job. I'm a driving instructor.
You sound like a robot. I talk to normal people.
I Zuckerberg did. Hi, you normal people. How do you do? Is this what normal people do? But so I talked to a bunch of normies in my job as a driving instructor. And, a lot of people are saying, I've heard them say, COVID was the switch when they realized they should hate the government. That, the forced injection and the lockdowns are the switch. And, and to touch on your thing with masculinity, I am around a lot of 16-year-olds because driving instructor, I'm teaching them how to drive in the state of New York. 16, you can get your permit. 16 and a half, you can get your license after you get that, 6 months after. And one of the things, I talk to a lot of these young girls, and they complain that guys suck in their age. They all suck. And then I say to them, I go, but they're not allowed to be masculine. And they're like, they kind of pops. I'm like, You know the term toxic masculinity? Like, yeah, I'm like, they were taught that it was wrong to be guys their whole lives.
It's really funny that 16-year-olds know the term toxic
girls
masculinity.
Here's the thing. The girls of this generation are annoyed by it. And I said, I'm like, part of it is your guy's fault. Stop telling a guy he's a creep if you say no and he tries to ask you out again. Don't put his stuff on the internet. Don't do all these. And they're doing these things to guys. And I'm not saying, listen, the guys that are folding, becoming trans, they were the weak males anyway, right?
Sure.
They were the ones that were probably going to be the weak males anyway, but they never had a chance. Back in the day, the weak males still got a wife, still had some kids. They were just a guy that got pushed around in the office, but they still did masculine things at some point. Now these guys are being told they're wrong their whole lives, like you said. And it sucks. So the Day of Visibility is amazing. I think we should all celebrate it. And it happened to fall on Easter Sunday this year. Now, I know a lot of people were saying that there was a conspiracy. I did look it up. The Day of Visibility has been on the 31st, I think the last at least 2-3 years. So while it's a stupid thing, it was coincidental. Now, are they mad that it landed on Easter? Absolutely not, because Marxists are atheists. They walk in the same, and they are extreme narcissists. But one thing that I love fucking with Western atheists is, and Rob, you might want to have fun with this at a debate, just tell them all that they're Judeo-Christian. They all are. Because that's where we get our values from. That's where we get our laws from. So their morality comes from Christianity, whether they like it or not.
Well, did you see Richard Dawkins here? The interview he just did like 2 days ago, where he's saying, like, I like living in a Christian culture, culturally. Yeah, of course. Right. And it's
because you could say what you want.
To be fair to Dawkins, he's had that position for a long time.
That's true.
But that is accurate. That is stance.
Yeah. And it's like, I completely agree. I mean, to me, the funniest thing about that statement, I mean, yeah, my initial reaction is like, oh man, Biden specifically chose this day. But you have to, we're not like the left, right? No. We're not going to sit there and say Biden said drink bleach. Biden said Nazis were good people. No,
we don't have to. He will anyway.
That's right.
Anyway. We don't have to make it up. He does it himself.
Right. Like that's the difference, right? They have to make these scandals up about people that we might consider voting for. For them, they have to pretend Biden's not sniffing little girls' hair and, shit like that. So, I will be honest, though. I'm not going to sell my integrity. Yeah, I don't think Biden specifically chose this day. It's been a day that's been chosen. Easter, maybe you're not religious and you're living under a rock. Easter does not fall on the same day. It's always a Sunday, so it will change the date.
But
so
he did make the choice to bring it up over Easter as
did he? Right? Because that's the story. The story is when the media confronts him and they're like, hey, you put this statement out declaring. What did he say? No, I didn't. And so the question
becomes, he's a liar. The man's been a liar his whole life. And I don't care about the senility side of it. I really don't. I don't care that he might.
It's not even senility. There's three options. He was told and forgot, right? That's option one. Second is he's just lying. Or what I believe is the third option. They don't even care to tell him anything.
Exactly.
They send him out there and they're just like, yeah, dude, shake the hands, awkwardly walk around, go back in the basement, leave us the hell alone. We run the show. That's why Biden was actually the perfect Democrat candidate because, like Chuck Schumer said, the government's not actually ran by the president. It's ran by all these people that you didn't elect behind the scenes.
And so Trump found that out quickly.
That's right. So what better person to have as your front runner is a person who literally has dementia, who literally doesn't know where he's at. So you can just...
I don't give him a pass. I don't give him that pass. I think that he did it and maybe forgot that he did it.
My thing is, it's not a pass for me. I don't see it as a pass. Biden's always been terrible, but just because he's always been terrible doesn't mean he's actually has the ability to continue.
And I think it's more of Jill. I think Jill might be absolutely evil. And I could see Jill being in his ear with a lie. I think she's also a fucking moron. We've heard that plenty of times that Jill Biden.
You mean Dr. Jill?
That is Dr. Jill to you. But so I don't know. I think that he was okay with it because we also got to remember the guy's a raging racist. The guy is a absolute leftist. And I've said for years, Dave, a lot of people are like, oh, the Democrats, they were never like this. Fuck that. They were always socialists. They were always this way. What happened is, and I've put this theory out there before, the squad has forced them all to take their masks off because the squad accelerated things more than they wanted to. Nancy, Chuck, the old guard was very happy at chip, 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 go slow, maintain our power, maintain. And here comes the squad going, hey, commie for me, commie for you. I'm going to take your shit. There's nothing you could do. And Nancy's like, guys, shut up. And now the party's become AOC.
I got to say, I'm very impressed. I say this all the time. I've never heard anyone else say that. That's what I've said. When you see Nancy Pelosi and AOC argue, it's not that they disagree. It's that Nancy's saying, shut up. Stop telling them what we want. And I don't know how much the squad accelerated. I definitely think that's true. But to me, the biggest acceleration was the election of Donald Trump. Because I do believe the reporting that you're hearing that Hillary was like, oh, shit, we're screwed. Like, we're all going to hang because Trump's going to come in office. And then something amazing happened. Trump screwed up. He put a bunch of people around him that he thought he could trust that were there to stymie him, to make sure that the truth didn't get out. And so now, like, you have to ask yourself, seriously, it seemed that we had the frog and the boiling pot theory where they kept turning up the heat gradually. And then all of a sudden they panicked and they just jacked it to full strength. And we're like, we're all going to get in a lot of trouble. And then they didn't. And they're like, oh, now we could just be openly corrupt. We could literally, and that's what's happening. They're using lawfare in ways like, is there any doubt in anyone's mind at this?
You froze for a second. Where'd you go, Rob? So
all in Rob, against Trump.
Oh, there you go. You're back. You froze for a second, Rob.
Oh, sorry, but yeah, it's just like we can openly see the corruption now, and it's more open than ever, and so they don't have to hide behind closed doors, and so you're seeing more, like they'll just the gaslighting to me is just in epic proportions. Well, they'll say things like, you know, Biden is like you'll listen to Buttigieg talk. This is like my impression of Buttigieg. He's like, yeah, I was talking to all these train engineers. Like, we brought the 10 greatest train engineer minds in the world together.
Is this one of his 5 press conferences? Because the guy has been at work for fucking 4 years.
Right.
Well, he's pushed out baby after baby.
That's so right. The poor guy's still sore. You know, so like he's like, these smartest engineers in the world, they can't keep up with Joe Biden. He's so smart. He's just like, you know, this guy's more
He's like Robin Williams in stand-up. You can't keep up with him.
Right. And like and Karen Jean-Pierre saying the same thing. Apparently, Biden has the terrible misfortune of every time he's in front of the camera, he looks like a dementia-addled old man. But as soon as the camera goes down, he's doing cartwheels and he, you know, chin-ups and he, you know, it's just bullshit. They're lying.
We got a hidden camera and it's an act. I would love it. Honestly, I would respect Biden so much more if there's like a hidden camera in the Oval Office and he's just like, I can't fucking believe these fucking people. Get the fuck over here. Where's my coffee? What did I say to you guys? And like, he's actually like, and then they sit there like, come on, guys. All right, coming up. I got to make my appearance. Okay. How am I doing?
The thing is, though, you're making up a fun clown world. We're not in the fun clown world.
Well, to speak to it a little.
Let me live.
Like with the Her report, you know, the special counsel that looks into Biden's mishandling of classified documents. I don't know. You guys are younger. I'm 39. You're probably younger.
I'm 35. I'm only 4 years.
You remember Seinfeld? One of my favorite shows.
Oh my God.
Okay, so you remember the episode where like Jerry finds out that his uncle and his parents go into the bookstore and like steal batteries, and then when they get caught, they're just like, "I'm an old man. I'm confused." I thought, like, that was Biden's defense, right? He got caught dead to rights, classified documents, not just mishandling them, but acknowledging that he was mishandling on tape, and then reading the classified material to his writer. Everything they accused Trump of, except far worse, on tape, dead to rights. Then his ghostwriter tried to delete the evidence, got caught doing that. Everything worse than what they accused Trump of, right there in black and white. But the guy's like, well, we can't prosecute him because we feel that a jury would be sympathetic because he's just a confused old man.
And he's the ruler of the free world.
Nuclear codes in hand. But we could, re-elect this guy for 4 more years. But like literally, he could commit. They always said like Trump, what if Trump shot someone on Fifth Avenue? They would, you know, his supporters would. Literally, the precedent now with Joe is we can't charge him with any crime he's a dementia-addled old man who can't be held responsible. It's literally insane. And it's right out there in the open for everyone to see.
So, Rob, here's one thing I want you to ask next time you're debating a leftist. If they ever bring up the switch theory, because I hate the ideological switch theory. I think it's the biggest bullshit. But don't necessarily argue the merits, because we all know no senators really switch outside of Strom Thurmond very later. There's no evidence that voters change. I've actually been doing a lot of research into this, and there's no evidence that even the ground voters changed, right? They all stayed blue up until basically Reagan. Reagan was real switching point there.
Right.
Ask them, okay, let's accept your theory. Who do you guys claim? Who's on the left anymore? Do you still want FDR? Do you still want Woodrow Wilson? Or are those ours now? Now, we don't want them. We know they're assholes. But the thing is, like, when you're debating them, put them in a bind with this and be like, so who do you want? Because now you just lost some of your idols. The people that you want, like, okay, Malcolm X is ours. That he was on the left. He was, you know, and so I would love to see an answer right there, like how they would handle that. Because even if they say, well, the Northeast, be like, oh, Stephen Douglas, that racist piece of shit. Have you ever read the debates with him and Lincoln? So it's like, I would love.
LBJ himself allegedly said, "I'll have these N-words voting."
LBJ probably dropped more N-bombs than every rapper known to man. Like, I could see that being a thing. Like,
well, this is just it. Like, when you're a cultural Marxist, it comes from this postmodernist tradition. They don't believe truth exists. If your audience wants to see an example of this playing out, for me, I debated this a lot in college. I was a debater in college, right? So I heard postmodernism a lot. I don't. I'm going to say the joke.
You were a master debater.
I was. I got a story about that here in a minute. But if you go back to the Kavanaugh, stuff, and listen to Cory Booker when he's talking, and he keeps saying, Christine Blasey Ford is here telling her truth.
Yep.
He's telling her truth. What does that mean? Her truth. There is the truth.
Her opinion. It's her opinion.
And that's what they don't believe in the truth. So if you don't believe in the truth, it doesn't, everything's just a power game to them. So you could be like, you don't even have to go back that far. They could be like, oh, well, this person allegedly wore blackface, so they're out. This right winger, that's terrible. Except Trudeau, Jimmy Kimmel, Ted Danson, Sarah Silverman, all these people, icons of the left. Yeah, somehow Howard Stern's a moral authority lecturing Trump supporters on what is decent.
And all he did was have porn stars show their boobs and use a vibrator all the time. Right. The Sybian became famous because of Howard Stern. Kids, go look that up.
They used to have countdowns. They would have girls come on the show and have countdowns till their 18th birthday.
Yes. And you have girls go on there, all of them show their boobs and be like, oh, I'll get you a boob job because I like the way you're sit.
Right.
Look, the guy's a fucking pig and a half.
Right? Now, we didn't get on the right. Live and let live. I don't like it. I won't watch it. Whatever.
And sometimes he was funny. I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
Sometimes Howard Stern was funny. Sometimes he had great guests. And I'm not gonna lie. As a kid, he was on E. I would watch the blurred out version every once in a while. I was a young man.
No, I'm with you. But the way they could pick and choose. So of course it doesn't make they don't in their head. It doesn't have to logically make sense. They'll pick and choose whenever because. When I tell people this all the time. When they're hypocrites, it tells you two things. It tells you,
oh no, not again,
not again. Okay, there you go. You're back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It might be yes.
They don't believe in what they're talking about, but they know you do. Let me give you an example. Kids in cages. Now, Joe Biden himself and Kamala Harris said that it was a human rights abuse that Trump had kids in cages. Then they come into office, and within a year, there's 4 times more kids in cages.
They themselves Biden was the one that had them put up with Obama. It was under the Biden-Obama administration that they were used more than anyone.
That's right. So now we have 4 times more kids in cages. Now, I knew the truth during the Trump presidency. The truth is this. What happened was the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals they're super left-wing, and they wanted to do something very clever. They want open borders. So they're like, here's what we'll do. An adult comes through with a kid, and we'll say, well, you can't detain that kid with the adult because something bad could happen. And most of us would go, okay, reasonable point. And they'd be like, but you can't detain the kid on their own. You can't detain kids. And you're like, okay, I guess. But then you can't detain the dad and let the kid go free. That would be separating. That would be terrible. And so I guess the only solution is we have to let both the dad and the kid through. Now, even the Obama-Biden administration was like, no. We're going to detain both of them separately.
Obama was actually pretty good on the border compared to what's going on now. He was great on the border.
Of course. And so you can understand. Basically, it's one of these things come up in politics. There's no good answer. If any of those answers suck, you have to do something. We can't have open borders. I don't want to see a kid anywhere in the world suffer or be in a cage anywhere. And they know that. The left knows. Now, the left doesn't give a shit. Yeah. They'd take 1 million kids in cages if it meant winning an election. Yeah. Would not give a shit. In fact,
they're opening up the borders and letting kids get raped every single day by coyotes, and they do not care. And do you remember when Trump mentioned the coyotes, and everyone on the mainstream media was like, "Oh, what does he mean by coyotes? Yeah. Is he talking about the animal?" And it's the playing dumb, and maybe not playing dumb. Some of them are really absolutely that dumb, but it's like you said, they don't care about objective truth, but they also have no religion, right? Even the ones that say they're Christian, if you have a religion, it might not be Christianity, but there is truth in religion. If you follow a religion, you are learning some objective truth. Therefore, you believe in an objective truth. So these people, like I mentioned before, they're Marxist, they're leftist, they're atheist. And that's where you can get your truth. They are postmodernists, like you said. They play these word games, and that's why they're always reinventing words. That's why now, they're not criminal aliens or even illegal aliens. They're newcomers. Let's welcome the newcomers. And it's like, let's fucking not.
Well, let me give you
not.
This is a great, right? So here's another thing. Like this actually, there's a left-wing lawyer I debate a lot online, right? And so like, here's two things that he legitimately believes. One, he defends the Colorado court case that tried to get Trump kicked off the ballot. And many Democrats, probably millions of Democrats defend that. In that, it says you have to argue that January 6th was an insurrection, and you have to argue that Trump engaged in it.
Which he was never charged for.
Okay, so let's take aside the question of whether or not it was an insurrection. Let's concede for the sake of argument it was. How did Trump engage in it, right? And this is the evidence that the Colorado court did. They were like, well, when he says fight like hell, we know that he means literally fist fight. And so it gives two quotes. The second quote it gives is, this isn't verbatim, but he basically says, we have Mitch McConnell and he needs to start fighting. And until he fight, so what? I'm supposed to believe that Trump was like, Mitch, put your brass knuckles on and get out there.
So here's also the question: when is Steven Crowder going to be locked up? His whole entire slogan is "Fight like hell."
Right.
That's his whole slogan of his show. So I'm wondering if they're going to sit there and put Steven Crowder in handcuffs and wheel him in and find out what
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, at this point, Like, I mean,
I'm not talking about anything late like Steven, okay?
But to finish his point, so Trump then famously said, go be peaceful, right? And the court said, and this person I'm debating in particular says, we know when Trump says be peaceful, he actually means the opposite. That's a coded language to his crowd to go be violent. Okay, now keep that in the back of your head. Now let's go Jamal Bowman. Jamal Bowman was this dude that pulled a fire. Now, why does this story matter? Just real quick for your audience, the reason this matters is one of the charges they're getting with January 6 people is the charge of delaying an official proceeding. Now, that's exactly what this Democrat Congressman Bowman was doing. There was a vote coming up that the Democrats wanted to delay, so he pulled a fire alarm. Now, video came out that proved that he wasn't pulling the alarm to get out the door, as absurd of a defense.
He ripped off the signs to begin with, too.
Right. Yes. So they got him dead to rights, but they didn't charge him with delaying an official proceeding because there's a two-tier justice system. Anyways, that wasn't even this person I'm debating. I'd set this up for a month, right? Because I knew what was likely to come out.
Yeah.
He had said that lying to police is a serious crime that needs to be charged, right? He had said that there was no possible chance that Jamal Bowman pulled that alarm and didn't intend for the alarm to go off. That's what this lefty is. Okay. When I debate the lefty, when all the information comes out, I said, here's the police report.
Yep.
Jamal Bowman told the police, I didn't intend for the alarm to go off when I pulled it. Now, in your own words, this lefty guy's own words, you know that's a lie.
It is recorded. It is on a recording.
You said lying to law enforcement is a serious crime that needs to be charged. So why aren't you cheering for him being charged for this? You know what he told me? He said, well, I think when Bowman told him I didn't intend the alarm to go off, he really meant I did intend for the alarm to go off.
It's always an excuse. It's always an excuse for them. And here's the thing, and I would love for you to start pushing on your channel. Every single Republican in the House that voted for George Santos to be removed, but has not brought up removal for Jamal Bowman every single day, needs to be primaried because they're all weak pieces of shit. You're going to get rid of one of our own and make our majority even less there, but you're not going to go after a guy who actually committed a crime. George Santos, his only crime was being awesome, okay? Because he can prove that all the piece of shit liars in Congress are just that. Yeah. They want to get him out for lying. That's all they do. That's all they do in Congress is lie. So I can't wait to vote for the guy. He's running again. George Santos better win again.
And get more power to him. And listen, he wasn't convicted of a crime. He was charged, but wasn't convicted when they got him out. Bob Menendez is accused of getting paid bribes from the government of Egypt to basically work as a spy.
Being a part of a sex chain years ago in South America.
Right, which he got off with underagers. He was accused of getting underage hookers. Yep. Yeah, they defend #MeToo, except Menendez, right? And Menendez, they know. Right. And here's the difference, right? Two things in this. One, there are two types of the Republicans that are doing this. There are the spineless that are like, well, norms and we have to hold our principles and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the leadership of the Republican Party. The leadership of the Republican Party hates populism in their own party more than they hate the Democrats. Democrats.
They don't
in fact,
hate the Democrats.
It's a
at all.
uniparty at
They're
the top. That's
leftists.
right.
They are leftists. Mitch McConnell, John Thune,
That's right.
all those motherfuckers,
Cornyn,
Lindsey Graham, all them, they are leftists.
Jeff Flake and McCain when he was there. And so that's why the argument, what happened was, this is my estimation, and Mike Benz, who I don't know if you've seen him, he's fantastic. He did this interview with Tucker Carlson.
I've seen Ben. I have him on my list on X.
If you could ever get him on the show, brilliant, where he talks about how free speech was used by our CIA and the internet for years in order to foster color revolutions in countries around the world. And I haven't put it as specific as him, but what I always said was there was a turning point in 2015 and 16, where it's clear that the current system isn't working for people. You had Occupy Wall Street and you had the Tea Party, and they're both pointing at the same problems.
Similar things.
They're coming to different conclusions.
And Occupy Wall Street initially was both sides. It was a lot of libertarians. It was a lot, and it wasn't even the far left. And you'll hear, I listen to Tim Cass a lot. Tim Pool was there. So was Luke Rakowski. And they would both say, at first, it was a lot of moderates. It was some Republicans, some conservatives, some leftists, but it was a lot of people that all agreed that the system is fucked and that it needs to be changed from the top. And then the Black Bloc Antifa, they were called Black Bloc, and people are old enough to remember that because they modeled themselves after black shirts, after communists and fascists and things like that, and their tactics. And they came in and they started rallying all of the same things we see today. Division, things by race, things by sex, and started making more of divisions outside of just the economics, right? And they basically killed, any momentum that, they had going on over there. So,
no, and what happened then is 2015-16, I think that the leaders in sort of the Western world understood that there was a lot of pressure rising up in their own countries. So you needed to release that pressure. So what was it? We'll give the plebes their stupid vote on Brexit, and we'll give the plebes their stupid vote on a populist candidate, Donald Trump. Now, it couldn't be Trump versus Bernie. They didn't want that. No. But Hillary had they all said it. Hillary had a 99% chance of winning. No, they wanted her to run against Trump. So the Republicans, okay, it won't be Jeb Bush this time. It'll be Trump. Give the people their stupid candidate. He'll lose. Then we'll say, hey, we tried. Now here's Marco Rubio next time. Here's Jeb Bush next time. The problem is they were overconfident. They had hubris, and they lost both Brexit and they lost the presidential election. And so they said, never again. We're going to make sure that we smear these people. We control the flow of information in ways that we've never done before. And that's what Mike Benz talks about, how they spent 4 years developing the censorship industrial complex, basically because they realized that if people, and I've said this from the get-go, the way my side wins, the way the populist wins, is just to inform people of the truth. I don't have to lie. I don't have to be fancy. The way they win, the way the establishment wins, is to censor the truth. That's it. One side wants to withhold information. The other side wants information to be available. Now, historically, which side do you think is usually more justified? Or who's more just? The side that wants people informed, or the side that's intentionally like, no, you have to trust these handful of people, and we need to withhold.
It's always the autocrats. The autocrats are always right, and you're always wrong. So,
and you have to understand that, we have to be on a managed decline. There's no way out of it.
And Obama,
we're on there anyway.
Obama talked about it the whole time. That
consistently,
that we're going around. We're never going to be great again. We just have to accept this. And David, you're right. That was Obama's chief message when he went around the world.
That's the consistent message still for all Western countries. You have to understand that you're heading here anyway. So we have to control it to make it as good as possible for you. That's why we have to bring every single person that wants to claim they're a migrant, even though they're an 18-year-old guy that's already been fine in his country.
And some of them were in military in their own countries.
Yes, some of them were actual terrorists in their own countries. So that's why we have to do that, because we have to have that managed decline. Otherwise, we can't grow. We can't do more. That's not a possible thing.
So speaking of a decline, this is a perfect segue here. Right now, there's a good chance, Rob, that the next time you're on our show, which I absolutely would love to have you back on and have your whole entire, fan base watch us again. And I hope everyone on Rob's stream is enjoying it. Everyone watching our stream, thank you as well. Smash that like button and all that good stuff. But there's a good chance next time you're on, we may be under, some really strict things about what we could say and what we can't say, because we're looking at with the West, England, and now Scotland have hate crime laws where you can do hate speech and you can go to jail for just saying things. A podcast like this can land us all in jail. No problem. Do you think it's coming here?
Yeah.
And do you think our First Amendment is strong enough to fight this off?
No, it theoretically is, and the clarity of it. Like, I mean, as written, of course, it should be, but the problem is it's only as strong as the people we have to enforce it.
Yes.
And the people that enforce it are hell-bound in removing it. Same with the Second Amendment. I would say that those two amendments, all the amendments are important, don't get me wrong, that are the Bill of Rights are important, but the first and second, clearly, it's like 1A and 1B, because you need to have the right to free thought and free expression, and you need to have the right to defend yourself so that you can have that free rights, and you need to have the right to express yourself so you have the right to, they go hand in hand.
Well, we already saw the right of assembly getting destroyed during COVID,
of course,
right? You weren't allowed to assemble outside during COVID, which...
Well, it depends on what you're assembling for.
That's true. If you were assembling because, you know,
if you had a BLM protest, then you're fine.
Well, if a drug addict died of a drug overdose while a cop was on his back, then yeah, you were cool with that.
My governor, well, it was Tom Wolf at the time. Yeah. Again, I had a radio show at the time, and my friend Todd Bartley had a press pass, and I think it's still the most watched video I have on YouTube. It's not a live stream. It was explaining that Tom Wolf told people they were cowards if they didn't want to lock down, and that he would take away their business license if they tried to maintain their business. Right? This is Democrat governor of Pennsylvania. Then 2 weeks after he called us cowards if you were afraid you were going to lose your home because you couldn't go to work, you know what he did? Went out and violated his own order to march with Black Lives Matter. So my friend Todd Bartley's at the press conference and asked Health Secretary Rachel Levine, Trans Day of Visibility, asked you know, how do you...
Levine.
Right. How do you explain? I always say Rear Admiral Levine.
Dick Levine. Dick Levine. We got to call him Dick Levine.
So it says, you know, how do you explain this? And they're like, well, we think that the First Amendment is very important. Next question. You know, so yeah, I mean, we already have censorship in the form of these corporations. That's not necessarily a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment protects you from the government censoring. But then what the Twitter files showed was we actually had agencies within the government that were pressuring social media companies. And so when you point this out, the left will say, well, but they didn't demand it. Right. But the threat's implicit. It's like a carrot and stick approach. We'll work with you, Facebook, if you comply to our wishes here, and if you don't, who knows what will happen? And you had Democrats.
When you just so happen, doesn't this account look like they're violating some of your terms? I really think that Rob Noerr account is violating your terms. Facebook, you should look into this account. We strongly think, and no, that's not coercion at all when a government entity is doing it. No, absolutely not. So yeah, so how long do you think we have? How long do you think we have in America before a show like this isn't allowed to exist? You and your streams aren't allowed to exist under threat of jail time.
Well, so I'm not black-pilled totally yet. I think that the push will come culturally before it becomes politically. And I think you're starting to see that cultural push. I think that you're seeing, like, I know this sounds stupid, and by no means am I endorsing this as someone being incredibly intelligent or anything like that, though I don't mind this person. But when you see people like Joe Rogan and other people that are historically left-leaning, yeah, I like Joe too, but I don't even think Joe would sit here and tell you like I'm some super genius. The reason I bring him up is I don't think he's traditionally someone who would go out of his way to be super conservative or super Republican.
Not even.
And
but when he asks questions, so he's dangerous because he asks questions.
And you even see people, as much as I do dislike this person, Bill Maher, that spoke up against some of the stuff with COVID and with free expression being attacked. I think that there is a point culturally still in this country that people understand the importance of allowing people to speak. Now it's going to be it's going to be the highest priority. That's why the government constantly, when they talk about what's the biggest threat to our country, they say disinformation. That's the biggest threat, disinformation, right? So it is quite literally, they're going to be the same people that are telling you today, there is no way the government would ever lock you up for saying something like this. Would have told you 3 years ago that there's no way that Alex Jones would get an infinity $1 trillion fine for saying what, and now they're saying, well, of course he did. He deserved it. Just like they'll be telling you 3 years from now, of course, Alex and Dave and Rob should be in jail. Did you hear what they said? Of course. It's to protect. So it is coming.
We made fun of St. Floyd. Well, I did. I'm going to make fun of St. Floyd.
Disavow.
Whoa. I didn't know all that. I'm out of here.
My internet skipped while he said that. I promise. Didn't you see I was freezing?
No, it's scary because they would like to accomplish it without they always want to use as deft of a hand as possible. So they don't necessarily want to be as heavy-handed as possible. So if they could control the flow of information without just straight up locking you up, that's preferable, right? So if they that's why, to me, more than Trump being elected in 2024 pissed them off, the bigger threat to them was Elon buying Twitter.
Yes,
that actually was a bigger threat.
Now, he's a bigger threat, but I've been on the record for this. Conservatives need to be smarter about Elon Musk.
Of course. He's not a conservative.
We're really bad about falling in love with some people that do one nice thing. Like the people on the right that are like, I'm so disappointed that RFK got this leftist girl to be his. He's always been a leftist. He is a climate psycho. And let's put this out there. So is Elon.
Yeah.
The whole purpose that Elon wants to do SpaceX is to leave because he believes in climate change. So
that's it. It's the same with Trump, though, right?
Yes,
like you said, Trump was basically a Democrat. We are so bereft of people in positions of power that speak up for us that we'll take people that disagree with us on 90% just because they're sticking up for us in 10% of an important issue. That's how bad it is for people that are conservative or people that are on the right. So with Elon, it was so funny. There's this clip from this guy from MSNBC named Ari Melber, right? And it was when Elon suggested buying, and he's like, what if this guy buys it and all of a sudden he starts censoring the political side he doesn't like? What if he kicks one of their candidates off the?
I remember hearing that. I think Glenn Beck ran that on that, and he was like, this guy is the most tone deaf individual I've ever heard in my life.
But that's what they were never worried, right? Like they'll claim we're worried that Elon will do what we did to them. That's not what they're worried about. They're worried that it will be an even playing field. They can't accept that. They have 95% of social media in the media landscape. They need 100. Anything that's not 100 is not fair to them. And so how dare we not be allowed to censor conservatives on this space? They're not saying we're afraid we'll get censored. They're saying, what if Alex Jones has a voice? Great. Alex should have a voice. He absolutely should. I don't have to I'll be honest with you. If I was a parent of a child that was killed in Sandy Hook and I saw Alex Jones, I'd probably punch him in the mouth. But the idea that he should be sued for millions of dollars for espousing a conspiracy theory. Okay, you're okay for that today. What happens tomorrow when I'm saying something like, actually, I believe there were biolabs ran by the United States and Ukraine. Maybe that's a reason for Russia to be pissed. Do I get fined? Do I go to jail? Where's the cutoff? Yeah. And that's and it's amazing because all you have to do. And by the way, we already see, who was it? Jacob Chansley? Is that the guy's name?
The Viking?
I'm
Jacob Chansley.
The meme guy.
I forget his name. He was the one that did the Hillary meme with
yes.
I forget his name, but
he's going to jail.
He is going to jail. Yeah.
I mean, so and I tell
Douglas Mackey.
Douglas Mackey, that's it.
See, it's similar syllables to
Douglas Mackey. We'll give you a pass on that one, Rob.
Thank you. But no, you go back and you look, for example, at moments of shame in the history of our country, like Korematsu was this court decision in World War II where we locked up Japanese Americans. The left would have been
we didn't do shit. FDR
that's right.
That, okay? The leftist did that. Leftist champion. All the atrocities this country has ever done has been under a leftist president.
Let me even use a better example, right? So I don't know much about Coach Red Pill, Gonzalo Lira, but he goes to Ukraine. He tries to flee Ukraine. Ukrainian government that's supposed to be not only our ally, but basically our vassal state at this point, that's sole existence is because we're funding them. They lock up this American citizen. Then they release him. He tries to flee the country. They lock him up again. He dies in prison. What was his crime? And I had people tell me over and over, I debated all these people on the left. They said he was a spy for Russia. He was giving away Ukrainian government positions to Russia. So I found someone to translate the indictment. And it turns out, you know what he was indicted for? Two things. He was indicted for, one, denying Russian war crimes, and second, insulting Ukrainian troops. And so the question I had, and all these lefties were like, well, he deserved to be in prison. Make no mistake, in 2003, 2004, when I was on a college campus being a Ron Paul-esque libertarian, and all my friends were left-wingers, and we went to marches against the Iraq war, these people today would have said, I should be in prison.
Yes.
That's what they would say. They would say, how dare you question the government? You're denying Saddam Hussein's war crimes.
That's like Vosh saying that, back to Vosh real quick, saying that, you wouldn't have stopped Hitler before he was there. And I'm going to say to your leftist friends, no, you wouldn't have, because Hitler was a leftist. And so are all the fascisms of the right wing of the left. It's the right arm of the left. It is a left. They are socialists.
It comes down to this fundamental principle, right? Like, do you know who Richard Spencer is?
He's the leader of the white supremacists, right now.
Most famously punched Nazi in recent times.
Not a Nazi, not a white supremacist.
And also, Dinesh D'Souza famously talked to him on Death of a Nation. He did the Death of a Nation documentary, and he talked to him.
Yeah, and when I debated him for one reason, because
awesome.
I got him to say like 25 times, the Democrat Party represents your ideals more than the Republican Party.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Yeah. And he admitted it over and over. I was like, just want to be clear on that. Yep. I got what.
And the only reason that people need to realize why anyone down south would vote Republican is this one reason. Republicans believe in free speech. We will let them speak their mind. We will let them assemble. We'll disagree with them. We'll tell them they're idiots to their face. We will disavow. But we will not tell them that they can't do what they can't say what they want to say as long as they are not threatening or causing physical harm. Like, we're the leftists, which they used to be in line with, and they are still in line with in terms of thinking in terms of groups, right? They are very much. Ibram X. Kendi would have a great fucking conversation with Richard Spencer. They would agree on everything.
They agree on everything.
They agree on every single thing that they want to do.
Referential group that they share.
Exactly.
It was that whole. Ryan Long did a whole skit about it.
Ryan Long did an
saw that
amazing
skit.
skit
We agree on everything.
That's right. So, anyways, Spencer, there was this conversation: is it okay to punch a Nazi? And you had all these lefties that were like, "Yeah, it is." The Guardian wrote an article about it. They were like, "Well, not really, but yes," is basically what the Guardian said. The problem with it is this: I could make the moral case why no, even if someone has repugnant free speech beliefs, even if they say, I want to vote to take your home away from you, you don't get to punch them. If they come to take your home away, now it's a matter of defense. That's different. But in the moment when they're just speaking, you don't have the right to use physical violence unless it's in defense, right? But if I can't convince you of that, let me tell you the other reason the answer is no. Because once you say, okay, this guy's a Nazi, sure. You know what their next argument's going to be? And you're a Nazi. Which means I get to punch you, which is exactly what they're doing. And so they set the frame. This is why I say, like, in order to have a debate, we have to have certain agreements, a groundwork on what's allowed and what's not. So there's and this is going to sound stupid, but I did policy debate in college. You need to have like a framework like this. We need to agree upon a language that we both understand.
Yeah,
I debated a person
definitions that you're going with. Yeah,
I debated a person once in college debate without a mouth. I'm not making this up. They literally could not speak. And they got up and they mumbled for 9 minutes. And if you said, I can't understand you, they said, bigot. And you lost the round. True story. That's the type of shit that policy debate.
So do you just kind of have to argue your policy part without knowing what the fuck they were even trying to say?
Well, you have to keep in mind that the judge is going to be some radical lefty. So
was
probably
overpowered.
what you did was like, I understand your point. What you're trying to do is say sort of the ableism that occurs in our society, and we totally agree. But we think the best way to approach ableism would be so. Like it was routine to be told, like
I don't know if I could do that because I would just sit there and just be like, and here's what I want, honestly, Republicans to do in Congress. I want them, because I watch the committee meetings. Yes, laugh at me, point and laugh. I watch C-SPAN, and I'll watch some of the committee meetings, and I want them literally every single time that they get up to vote, or not get up to vote, get up to talk, they should start off with saying, everything that my Democrat colleague just said is wrong and they're an idiot. And then they can keep going. Like, they should just reiterate that every single Democrat that speaks, for the most part, is a moron. And I feel like it would make it much more interesting.
It would be more entertaining, that's for sure.
Now,
but
quickly, you can go, and then I want to show anyone that hasn't seen a little bit of the video that Dave was talking about, because I found it and it's amazing.
I'll just say this real quick. Like,
go ahead.
We have to agree on what's acceptable as far as discourse. And if I'm debating someone and they're like, well, if I disagree with you, I get to punch you in the face, then there's no debate. Right. And the problem is you can see how this plays out. And so I predicted a January 6th type event, which has been massively blown out of proportion. It was a riot that got out of hand. It wasn't an insurrection. The Democrats wanted it to occur. I could talk to you for 8 hours as why that's the case.
Certainly
but just know this, though, right? It was always inevitable that there would be a right-wing riot. Why? Well, the same way it was inevitable that Richard Spencer would start to get followers. Because when you say one side is allowed to use these strategies, they're allowed to engage in violence over and over, the summer of love with George Floyd, and they were like, well, it's mostly peaceful. Well, it's not a bad thing. Inevitably, people on the other side would say, okay, we're going to do that. And I spent that entire summer on debate panels, debating people, probably a dozen debates. And every single time I said, the lesson you're sending to people on the right is it's okay to riot. And when they do, you will all lose your mind and say, oh my God, this is the worst. And that's exactly their entire strategy going into 2024 is January 6th is the worst day in the history of this country. And the right are these evil, violent insurrectionists, totally whitewashing the fact that they supported this violence or were silent about it when it happened over and over, which made it inevitable. And that's exactly what happened.
And and just the bottom line is with J6, Big Con probably realized that they don't have half as much power as they think they do, because all of big conservatism was saying from the get-go, don't even go. This is a setup. Don't go. If you're going to go to the Trump rally, fine. Do not go down to the Capitol. And what happened? They were ignored vastly.
So, yeah, Alex Jones even told them on the day.
Exactly.
Yeah, Alex Jones
would say,
bullhorn saying don't go. On video, he has a bullhorn saying, don't go. Go to the stage on the other side.
By the way, brief aside on that, Alex Jones debated Destiny, and I debated Destiny before the Alex Jones-Glenn Greenwald debate. Destiny wanted me to debate me as preparation for Alex Jones.
I saw that with Zero Ledge, right? They did that whole entire.
Yes.
That was actually a solid debate too.
Yeah, and so Destiny made the claim. I wish I wouldn't have said this. He made the claim in our debate. Alex Jones was there and was encouraging people, and I was like, no, dude, no, he wasn't. He was the exact opposite. He was telling people not to go. I wish I wouldn't have said it, and he would have brought it up to Alex Jones. Alex would have been like, "What are you talking about? I told them, God damn it! I said the government was setting this." It would have been amazing.
And then Ian would have yelled at them some more because Ian Carlson was flipping the fuck out at them.
He lost
because they were not listening. He lost control, and I remember at one point he's like, "Shut up!"
Well, here's the problem. And
I do love Ian.
So I did Ian's show, and I asked him about this. I was able to intuit this. I don't know if you knew this, but that was filmed at Alex Jones' set. And I said, let me guess. Alex wasn't treating this as a big debate. Alex was treating this as like, you guys want to have some drinks? Like, sit around, turn the fucking camera on. Come on, let's go. And that's it. So Alex, it's not like
because Alex off the cuffs most things. He reads his news stories.
That's right.
And he's ready with the information and the stories. But in terms of what he's going to say, I don't think he's sending anybody an itinerary like we did to talk to anything. Alex just does Alex. Yeah, he's great.
I love it. I love his show. I think he's great. I don't agree with him on everything. I don't think I would want him as my debate partner in a serious debate because he's going to get unhinged. And that's what happened. He's just like treating it like if us three are sitting around watching a basketball game arguing about politics, there's no real moderation. So poor Ian's there and he's trying to be like, oh shit, I got to rein this in a little.
Who decided that Ian Crosland's a guy to get that group in line? Like, not Ian. Like Ian, needs a little more. Like, get Ian, Jordan Peterson, and Ben Shapiro debating. Like, I don't know, some more intellectual leftist. Like Glenn Greenwald's fine with him, right? Because Glenn's more of an intellectual. But Alex Jones, Destiny, the fucking Krasensteins, they're all a bunch of shock jocks. And Alex, Alex is a shock jock. He's good at what he does, but he says some shit, and Ian was never going to have control of that ever. He's too nice of a guy. Ian's just too nice of a dude. And then when you get him to push and you hear him yell, and it's like, yeah, Ian got mad. And this was pre-lifting Ian too. So
that's right. I feel like Ian's probably like, wait, there's some bad vibes going out in the ether here.
Alex, you're ruining my chi, man.
Ian went to bat for me, man. Doing that show with Destiny, and then Ian's the one who noticed me and talked to Tim and his team. And unfortunately, I really wanted to meet Ian in person when I went in Tim's show, and he wasn't in the area. So I actually didn't get to meet Ian. I met
Luke.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I met the rest of the team, but I didn't. So hopefully I'll get to go down again and hang out with Ian because I love people that think differently. Like, I think I could just tell all of us probably have a similar mindset and a similar way of viewing the world. Yeah. Ian's the type of guy, when I was in college, I was friends with all these artists, right? Because I'm the least artistic person you ever meet, but I was fascinated by that mindset, right? So these hippie, I would hang out with these patchouli wearing, drum set dudes. And I'd just be like, all right, whatever, man. They thought I was fascinating because I'm like this fast talking maniac. And them, I was just like, damn hippies, what are you talking about? It's a good, that's how I feel Ian is. Like, Ian gets thrown into that crowd, and it's like, he's thinking about big concepts about life throughout the stars. And then I'm sitting there like, Barack Obama's a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then the thing is with Ian too, any conservative, if you haven't watched Tim Cass IRL with Ian, at first you're gonna fucking hate him.
Right.
Anyone that watched it at first is like, God, he's just a shitty leftist. And then you get to 5 episodes deep, and you're like, whenever Ian's on the show, it's not as good. Ian just grows on you, and he quickly becomes your favorite person on Timcast.
I agree. He's very good.
He's fantastic. So I do want to jump to one more topic. I want to watch this quickly, and I don't want to stay here too long, but I want to quickly watch this because this is hilarious. I think, if anyone that hasn't seen this, it is a great little bit and it's about race and wokeness actually agreeing. So let's get it.
When me and Brad first met, I didn't think we'd get along, but it turns out we kind of agree on everything. Your racial identity is the most important thing. Everything should be looked at through the lens of race.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. We both have a lot of opinions about people of color, even though we barely know any.
I say colored people, but as long as we're classifying them, we both think minorities are a united group who think the same and act the same.
And vote the same. You don't want to lose your black card. Sorry, I don't know. I just think we should
roll back discrimination laws so we can hire based on race again. Jinx, now you owe me a Coke. Hey, tell them what you told me yesterday.
White actors should only do voices for white cartoon characters.
I've been saying that for years. Stick to your own.
Us white people, we have so much privilege.
I agree. It is a privilege to be white. Ask him about interracial dating.
All I said is that black men who date white women have internalized racism, and white men that date ethnic women are fetishizing them.
Guys against interracial dating now. Like, am I being pranked?
Wait, pause it real quick, though. Pause it real quick. Because that's funny, because that is their ideology on it. But they're also the same people that will consistently interracially date.
Yep.
Like, it is hilarious.
And it is
how much
like,
they love to be dating outside of their race when they espouse that shit.
Anyone that yells about race, like, is like you said, like Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has talked about race before. She has a white husband. Like, they all do, and it's just hilarious. So we'll watch a little bit more. We might watch the whole thing because it's hilarious.
That taco place is white owned.
White people should be making white foods like Kraft macaroni and cheese, no seasoning, not even salt. It's like he's a mind reader. I mean, I've been pushing for segregation forever, and my man does what?
I created an improv comedy show exclusively for ethnic people.
Guy segregates comedy on my birthday.
White people need to stop wearing dreadlocks, and they need to stop appropriating black people's music.
Shaved heads and country music, the way God intended.
You know all white people are racist.
I'm listening.
Even if you have a black wife or a black friend group, you're still really racist.
You know, we just kicked a guy out of the organization for having a black girlfriend, but if you can promise me he's still really racist, we'll consider letting him back in. Black people should only shop at black businesses.
I guess the only thing we really disagree about is I think white people are the root of all evil.
But what did I tell you, though? If we can narrow that down to a certain group of tiny-hatted white people, I think we can come to an understanding.
Technically, I don't consider Jewish people white.
Neither do I.
Forgot about that.
Very timely.
Yes, actually.
It's incredible. It is incredible, but it's so true, right? And the thing is, like, I haven't shown enough normies that. And I really need to. I feel like anytime you like sit there, like, you need to show them that, because the thing about Ryan that's great about him is he's using comedy the right way. He brings comedy to bring out these topics. When people can laugh at the absurdity of things, it brings it back to them. So I love that. I think it's a great thing. I'm happy I was able to share it. So I want to talk about one more thing before we jump out of here. The Baltimore Bridge disaster. Is it just right out the gate, accident or attack? What do you think?
Probably accident, but let me give this caveat. I don't know. And the reason I don't know, let's start here. I don't begrudge anyone that believe, quote, conspiracy theories. First off, conspiracy theory is a label that's thrown around by people to get, it's not that they're worried you're wrong. They're worried you're right. That's why they label.
And now it's correct. And now it's fact.
Right. So that's the problem. How many conspiracy theories have been proven true here recently? Here's a conspiracy theory that's an official theory believed by the official establishment organizations in our country. Jeffrey Epstein, the most important prisoner in the world, killed himself while 2 guards fell asleep, while 2 cameras malfunctioned in a way that was almost physically impossible. Now, if that's the official story that we're being told, then I'll listen to any bullshit. You can sit here for 2 hours and tell me the earth's flat, and I'll say that's still not as ridiculous as that official theory. So I don't begrudge anyone. The other thing I say about this is you can't blame me for being distrusting of these institutions. You should blame those institutions. When they lie to us over and over, they're no longer to be trusted and should be looked at with skepticism. Now, does that mean every time there's a shooting, every time there's a shipwreck, every time there's a hurricane that this was plotted by the government? Of course not. There are things that
global warming.
That's right. So so I don't know. Now, my guess is from what I've seen, I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that this was anything other than this ship losing power, desperately weighing an anchor, which caused it to turn when they didn't have their steering. And then when the power briefly comes back on, it's too late and it hits it. It could be a combination of many factors, though. For example, it could be because of DEI, and we now have people that aren't qualified to work on these ships, that incidents like this are more likely to occur. It could be that sort of because of DEI, maintenance on ships isn't what it used to be, and these sorts of malfunctions are more likely to occur. Or it could be that these maintenance people were incredibly qualified and were the ship captains, and this was just a terrible accident, or any combination thereof. The problem, what I can guarantee you is this: as we start to focus more on things like DEI, as we continue to have corrupt institutions that people don't believe, we're going to see more terrible accidents like this occur. And we're going to see each time that these accidents occur, even if they weren't plotted by the government is absolutely expert in exploiting these incidents to achieve their agenda.
Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? Isn't that the phrase that we've heard, many a times? And, and the thing is, the most plausible explanation is, like you said, it's probably a mistake, right? But it's hard to not possibly think that this is nefarious. How many times have we heard, and it's been confirmed, China has been responsible for this hacking. Russia has attempted to do this. These bad actors are here. I can't imagine our technology and these cargo ships are foolproof. I really can't. You can control a car. If you have OnStar, your car can be remote controlled from the OnStar hub. If you are in a Tesla, Elon Musk can treat you like a fucking toy car.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it difficult to, at a minimum, do the GPS and make the GPS incorrect so that when the autopilot goes on, it is starting on the wrong course?
Of course.
Is that, and that's got to be simple technology right now. Like, I could probably go on YouTube and find out how to hack a GPS on YouTube. Like, I really could probably do that right now on this stream.
Here's the frustration where they immediately say, no, nothing to see here, right? It's like the 2020 election. I could have handled the 2020 election. I could have handled this. The lefties say this. Of course, we massively changed because of the pandemic how we voted. And there's always going to be slightly more fraud and slightly more ineptitude when it comes to these sorts of things. However, we don't see any evidence that it was enough to switch the election from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. That would have been a reasonable answer, even if we disagree. Instead, their answer was, it was the most secure election ever, and you should be censored online if you try to. We're going to take away your YouTube channel because you're questioning this, right? It's the same thing here. Like, they're out there immediately like, no, it couldn't have been anything else. Meanwhile, the same people that will call you a dangerous conspiracy theory if you have any questions about this vote, they're tuning into 60 Minutes 2 days ago to hear how they're using sonic weapons, not to target Ukraine and Zelensky, only to target pro-Hillary lawyers and FBI. Something called Havana syndrome. So, like, they spread this bullshit conspiracy stuff whenever it's convenient for them. They blatantly do things like blatantly lie to you. You remember at the beginning of the pandemic when Dr. Fauci came out and said, oh, whatever you do, don't go out and get a mask. A mask can't help you. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, we lied to you. We lied for your own good because we thought you'd buy too many masks. Well, how many times can you play that game?
And then 3 weeks later, he says to take them back off. And then he says he never did it. But then he's also pushing N95s, which were not good enough to stop the size of the coronavirus anyway. You needed the P100s, but nobody told you that.
They didn't get. Well, here's the thing, right? This is what I haven't heard anyone else in the country say this, right? Their argument was cloth masks work. That's what Fauci and them said for a year, right?
Yes.
Cloth masks work. And they claim they knew that. And they also claimed that they knew that the mask did work when they originally told us they didn't. They were just worried that people would run out and buy N95 masks. So in other words, we had to tell the noble lie because we were afraid you would have went out and got N95 masks.
And
my question is as follows.
People needed it.
Well, here's my question, though. If that's true and they believe those two things simultaneously, why didn't they say this? Hey, you have an extra shirt laying around at home? Why don't you just cut it and make yourself a mask? That'll be as effective as getting an N95. Don't go buy the N95.
Yep.
Why didn't they say that? If I take their own, which I don't believe their own logic because they're liars, but if I believe their own logic that masks would have saved tens of thousands of people, then how many people would they be under their own logic responsible for dying for telling them not to cut their shirt to make a mask? And so when you bring this up, and this is the best part, the left, it's always the same shit. When you throw this logic, how their own logic collapses on itself, when you throw it back in their face, they instantly are like, because they know it's bullshit. They're like, oh, please. Like, those masks would have saved people. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, you fucking idiot.
An example I give, okay? Because when this was going on, I was in construction. I was an insulator. So I played with cancer all fucking day. That was my job, okay? One part of my job was removing asbestos. I had to go in. Now, if anyone is young enough to remember Willy Wonka, the original, I basically had to dress up like Mike TV in the white Tyvek suit. And not only that, okay? The Tyvek suit, I needed to have rip all part from my gloves, tape that airtight on both sides. I had to cut out for my boots, tape my boots airtight. And I couldn't just wear any sort of mask. I had to wear a filtered full face mask and make sure that it was secure. This is to remove asbestos, a thing that causes cancer and kills you 20 plus years later. But you're going to tell me that a cloth gaiter, a knitted fucking mask, a surgical mask with holes is going to be good enough to stop the most contagious and deadliest virus of all time? That's what they were telling us.
It's horseshit. And like I said, that the left was willing to believe anything. If Dr. Fauci would have came out and said toilet paper is causing the spread of COVID, you'd have been walking around with people with shit covered hands.
Which like, if Dr. Fauci came out and said to inject bleach, we would have actually had it happen.
And so and here's the other things, right? Like,
so I convinced Fauci to come back and just brainwash him and do these things. Like we can just like, yeah, listen, you know what, Democrats, continue sterilizing your children. Right. I think that's a great, en masse. They would have no disease if they couldn't reproduce.
Abortion spreading COVID. Stop having abortions. It's spreading COVID. Yeah, people would eat that shit up. And think about, again, using their own logic. So a lot of lefties I've debated on this. And the reason, other than potential fraud, things like that, the policy issue of why Trump lost the election was COVID. Because here's the thing. There are a lot of people that have reasons to dislike Trump's personality. I don't begrudge that, of course. Okay, fine. He's not for everyone. Get it, right? But people were happy with the economy. And at the end of the day, that wins elections. So what stymied the economy? Well, the lockdowns, COVID, when it hit. Not COVID, the reaction to COVID. That's what stymied. And Trump, unfortunately, went along with some of this bullshit, and it hurt him. And I was desperately volunteering for him, trying to talk to his people, saying it was a huge mistake. But I'm small time. Anyway.
Well, here's the thing, though. With Trump, and I will defend him on this minorly, he is the most states' rights president we've ever had in a crisis situation. Because what he did was he said, listen, I'm going to wear the mask. You don't have to. Wear it if you want to. That was his message from the get-go. And the furthest he got to doing it is, I believe you should wear the mask, but make your choice. And also, we are not going to do anything federally. We are going to support the states. My federal government is ready to support any state that needs help. He provided ships. He provided extra centers. They built pop-up places in Central Park. And that's what he did. And maybe his mistake was he wasn't more heavy-handed, because his legacy is always going to be that it got out of control. That it got out of control under his watch. And the thing is, but it's like, that's what conservatives are supposed to want, right? The states' rights guy that does not get involved.
No, so, I agree, but I still think that.
Shout out to Robert Whaley, Tricky Dick Levine. Thank you, Robert. That's awesome.
That is great. But I'll still hold him accountable for embracing lip service to things like lockdowns. But anyways, neither here nor there. The point is this: when I debate these lefties, I'll say, okay, who did better? You think Trump shouldn't have been in office because of COVID? Did Biden do better? Because under the same time frame that Trump dealt with COVID, Biden dealing with COVID, more people died. And so what was it that Trump did that Biden would have done better? Or what was it that Biden did? And ultimately, they can't point to anything. There's only two things.
And they had the miracle vaccine that's right.
So they only point to two things. They say the vaccine. Biden got the vaccine out. It's like, okay, so if we're saying when Trump left office,
Trump got the vaccine out. That's the thing.
That's
Trump
just
got it out, not even Biden.
That's just it. So when Trump left office, not only was the vaccine created, which basically the Democrats were saying was impossible, but we were getting roughly 900,000 a day shipped out, which Democrats' goal was to get 1 million a day out. So Biden just came in and said, cool, keep doing that. That's his big, right? And then the other thing
beforehand, they were saying we're never going to take that shot.
That's the point. So the other point that they bring up, they say, well, it was how Biden took it serious, and Biden was taking it serious and Trump wasn't, and Biden was paying the best lip service. And it's like, but you've just acknowledged the best way to fight. Not my argument, your argument. The Democrat argument is the best way to fight the virus is the vaccine, correct? Yep. Okay. Well, who paid better lip service to the vaccine? Because even Trump supporters, many of them are still furious that he touts the vaccine. Yes. He has always touted the vaccine. Yes. Who was it that denied the vaccine? It was Kamala Harris. It was Joe Biden. It was the Democrats. They're the ones that said we wouldn't trust this shit. And then the moment they won the election, they were like, oh, never mind. Not only do we trust it, but you should be forced to.
If you do connect with Trump people in any way, can you please advise them? And maybe, Pastor Scott's awesome. Maybe I'll text him. But he needs to stop actually touting the vaccine itself. He needs to tout the process, because I think what he is more proud of is the fact that he was able to get it out in record speed. And being a businessman and the guy he is, his goal was to be the first person to get it out in record speed, get it approved, get it to the people. And he's never going to admit he was wrong. But what he should do is, at the time, this is what everyone was asking for. And like I do, I delivered. And I delivered it in record time. And I got it out to more people in record time. So in his eyes, was Warp Speed a success? Logistically and business-wise, it absolutely was. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I'm his people, now I don't think he fucking listens to anybody, but if I'm his people, I'm at least trying to guide him to say, stop saying the vaccine saved lives and start saying that I got it out there faster than anybody thought.
That's exactly right. And
that's where he should go with it.
That is absolutely, if he was to talk about it, that's where he should just stop talking about it altogether.
He should just stop.
But that's
and if it's brought up at a debate against Biden, which I think they're going to cave, and I think we're maybe going to get one, but it's like, they're going to bring that up. Mm-hmm. And all he needs to say is, Joe, I got it out there. You couldn't have done it because you can barely walk. I got it out there. I did what the people wanted. Everyone was asking for it. I did it. I listened to the people, and the process was a great success. The vaccine was distributed beautifully.
Well, not only did Biden and them say it was terrible, blah, 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 before they won the election, but I don't know how much you followed this. So there were already 2 trials that Pfizer had done before the election. Yeah. But they purposely didn't say anything until after the election because the narrative was Trump doesn't even have a plan on COVID.
And Rand Paul got that out to the public.
That's right.
When he was in the Inquisition with Fauci.
And so it's very troubling because what ends up happening is a lot of right-wing people ended up not liking the vaccine. I'm not even for the sake of this discussion, I'm not saying whether I like the vaccine or not. Yeah, I'm just saying that the people that like the vaccine acknowledge Trump's responsible for it. He got this ball moving. And then the people that claim to like the vaccine, they're like, but we don't give Trump any credit for that. We give Biden the credit. And it's like, but why? Trump's getting the worst of both of it. And it has to do with sort of control of the flow of the narrative and information. And it's something that the left is so good at. Like the abortion debate. The abortion debate comes down to these rare cases of but what if a girl is raped? Should she have to carry the baby to term? And it's a difficult question, right? Because you're well, if I believe this is a life, for example, not to skew into a whole subject, but this is what happens, right? Yeah. If a girl is 14 years old, raped by her stepfather, doesn't have a chance to get to the hospital, has the baby, a week after she has the baby, the police find out what happened, arrest the stepdad. Does the girl get to say, I think you should kill that baby because it reminds me of the pain and suffering and I can't live my life like that? Of course not. We would say, well, at that point, it's a baby. You can't kill the baby, even though the circumstances are tragic. We'd give it up for adoption. We understand that maybe it's too painful for this girl to be in that baby's life. Totally understand. Why would it be any different at 24 weeks? What's the difference?
It's a good argument to have.
Absolutely. And the Democrats are right. Just like the kids in cages, these are questions without good answers. These are tough moral dilemmas that you're going to have to bite a bullet. And yet, my belief is the American people are more willing to go with the average Republican's answer on that situation than the average Democrat answer, which is no restriction ever. Yes. Yeah. 9-month abortion, fine by us. Kill that fucking baby. And that's their position. And yet you can't get Republicans to make this argument. And they get pigeonholed. And it's if I was out there, I would be Dr. Oz himself. Dr. Oz got lambasted in Pennsylvania here because he said, I think that if this situation comes up, it should be between a woman, her doctor, and the local officials.
And local officials. That's fucking
he was trying to make the argument like the states' rights argument. Yeah. He was trying to say, as a federal congressman, I wouldn't have a say in this. It would be up to your state. That's what he was trying to say.
But he said it wrong.
What the left said was how dare he? How dare he? And what they were saying, how dare he, was you can't have an official involved. You can't have a politician involved. And it's okay, so then you're saying it's just a woman and a doctor, right? And I have this person who's a big fan of my show. He came on for an hour and a half and said, there's not one Democrat running that would be against abortion policy. They would all say, yes, of course, there has to be some limit. I was like, that's entirely untrue. Their official platform is no law. That is what they say over and over. Now, you might be right that if you talk to them behind closed doors, they'd be like, oh, my God, that's gross. They want to have 9-month abortions. But they can run on that shit. They're not going to talk about it because they know it's a loser for them because they have to grandstand. And so until the Republican and the right wing push back on that and make that the focal point. Like, I don't know how hard this would be. Like, if someone's like abortion, if I'm a politician, I'm running and CNN asks me about abortion, I'd be like, let me show you some pictures. How about that?
And not even that. And I'm going to go with, the Tim Pool method here. And I bring up Tim a lot because I do like the show. Sure. Do the big ask. No abortion, period.
Right.
That's where they should start. Right. Mm-hmm. And just like the leftists, they're going full Monty now. So what's going to happen? Eventually, it's going to be like, no, let's come to the table. And then we can, then you get the compromise. And, what a pro-lifer would say, I don't want to compromise. But at least you won't get 9.
But the problem is Republicans do that. Like, there are Republicans that are doing
not enough.
But they're not. But what you need to do perceptually is point out that the Democrats are the opposite side of that coin, that they also are extreme, right? So I'm not, listen, it's a very difficult argument because I don't necessarily say no abortion ever, but if you believe life begins at conception, I can understand your argument. That 100%. Is a baby. You can't kill that baby under just like you can't kill the baby 2 days after it's born because of a tragic situation. You can't kill that baby after. I get that argument. I totally understand it. I would never tell those people, well, I need to convince you that you need to kill some babies. I wouldn't do that. What I say to those people is, okay, I'm not trying to change your belief, but what you need to do is frame the argument in an honest way that shows what your opposition wants. Yes. And as long as you're left continually on the defense, continually say, like, and it's not hard. I mean, I don't have the video in front of me, but there's video of a doctor who performed many abortions who discusses in front of Congress what a late trimester abortion. It's heart-wrenching. Listen to this guy discuss it. Like, if I was a Republican, I would have that video saved on my phone.
100%.
And anytime someone asked me about abortion, I'd be like, listen to this.
Exactly.
You tell me, you're in that room. You tell me what you do to that baby. Or I'd play the Ralph Northam clip.
Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
We make it comfortable and then we come to a decision. And this shit is evil. This shit is as evil as it gets.
So, Dave, I'm going to give you last word because then we actually have to get out of here because we have gone. We have overstayed our welcome.
You're fine with me. You're fine with me. It's a great conversation. I actually did want to walk back real quick to like Trump and narratives because Trump himself is actually really good at pinning the narrative and actually pushing it. And that's why the whole COVID vaccine thing was really is weird to watch because he was the one that actually got usurped there. And he was the one that was on the back foot on the narrative there. And I do think that when it comes to Trump and, you brought up like being heavy-handed, and I feel like we want him to be heavy-handed in the fact that we elected you because we want your policies and your shit being done. Yeah. Like, you need to rein in Fauci and Birx. You need to make sure these people aren't going out there and saying whatever the hell on these press conferences and stirring up the most nonsensical stuff and just lying left and right. We need you to be, even if you want to trust these people, I mean, maybe you shouldn't, but even if you want to, you need to take control of what they're doing under your guide. That's like these are the people that you're employing, and you need to be the one that says, no, enough of this, because he did do that a lot. But when it came to COVID and when it came to that time, he was just on the back foot, which was rare during his term.
Definitely. Yeah, a couple of things real quick on that. Like, one, the entire issue that Trump started to run on in 2016 was immigration, illegal immigration. And every Republican strategist was like, don't talk about that. That's a loser.
Yeah, which is
Trump said after that. Yeah. And he took what was considered for Republicans a loser, because it's not that it was a loser. They knew, the Republican strategists knew it was a winner. It's just that the Republican leaders like the open borders. Yep. So it helps their businessmen get cheap labor. That's what was going on. But that, so yeah, he was so effective with that narrative. You're right. He should have controlled it in other ways. The other thing I'll say is, it's funny when you say heavy-handed, it's hilarious because I know exactly what you mean. The heavy-handedness is in reining in the heavy-handed bureaucrats. Exactly. So we're not saying we wanted Trump to go out
running the executive part of the branch, running his executive.
So Mark Cuban the other day, he tweets out, he's like, I don't understand why for the 3 equal branches of government, like we don't want Trump, like, a president that's talking about sort of controlling these executive agencies. That's bad for and it's like, no, you fucking idiot. It's the exact opposite.
Job.
The president is supposed to oversee the executive. And then the checks and balances are the legislator, the judicial, not the executive agents running out doing their own bullshit on their own, which they did in the most obvious ways. The most obvious of which would be, remember when Trump tried to pull troops out of Syria? And his generals committed treason and lied to him?
Yes.
I mean,
it's actual treason. Actual treason happening.
I may be the only person that likes that Mark Cuban is tweeting more political stuff more, because then we get to find out that he's actually not that smart. And that Shark Tank guy is fake, and that he's actually not that smart of a guy, at least politically.
Well, I was going to say he might be intelligent in other ways. I'll give him that. I mean, he made his money, but politically.
The only thing,
smart guy.
I mean, I would have to have a lot of soul searching, because the only person that I might dislike more than him that's like a billionaire is Bob Nutting, that owns the Pirates and never spends any money. And there was this conversation like 10 years ago.
I do love his last name, though.
Yeah, spend nutting, win nutting. That's the motto right here. But there was this conversation like 10 years ago that Cuban was considering buying the Pirates. So if he would buy the Pirates, I'd be like, well, I hate this guy, but at least he's spending money to bring in some players.
He buys them and doesn't spend anything. He's crazy. Like he's like, that's his one. Like, I learned my lesson in Dallas. I'm not going to spend as much. I just want to rake it in.
We're gonna have DEI days at the ballpark. Like that's
LA didn't go far enough with the Twisted Sisters over there, whatever the hell they were called. But Rob, thank you so much for coming on. This was freaking awesome.
Hey, real quick before you guys go, what nights do you normally stream? Just so my audience knows.
We are on at Wednesday, right around 9 p.m. Eastern every time.
But sometimes it changes around because
it's depending on the guest. We're a little more flexible, and if so, we'll put that out a little bit earlier as a programming note. But yeah, no, if you're fans that ever want to jump in, we will happily share them, and any of our viewers as well, definitely jump on. I'll throw all your stuff up there again. Go follow Rob on X at Rob Noerr, Noerr, for those listening.
If he hasn't showed you how tuned in he is to fucking everything, then I don't know what to tell you.
And go follow him also on Instagram over there, if it'll pop on there, rob.noerr. And then his YouTube page, go over there, Normal America with Rob Noerr. You go on there, you'll get his rants. And like you said, and I love that this was simul streamed. I think that's sick. I love that. And it was a blast having you on. Dave, do you have anything to say before we jump out of here?
No, great conversation. I would do it anytime, ever again.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. We'll get, absolutely. Would love
anything
to do
else
it again.
that you want to say before we jump out of here, Rob?
No, anyone who's watching on my end, please check out their show. I'm going to have the links below. People have been spamming the links in my channel as well. I thought this was amazing. I said it beforehand. I thought this was one of the best interviews I've done. I thought the professionalism before the interview, reaching out to me, everything was top notch. So honored to do it. Be happy to do it again. And maybe, even though I don't have the greatest connections in the world, I know I could get you hooked up with some people that would be great.
Yeah. And Robert,
I do want to put it out there,
real quick, Robert. We appreciate that compliment very much.
Yes. And I do want to put it out there that we're not just a political show. It's whatever I get. So we will talk about politics a lot. We are heavy on it, but we just talk about
we do sports. Dave and I are giant nerds, comics, manga, and we are going to have Pastor Scott. He is a big comic book guy, and he said he wants to come on and do a full comic book show, which I will be all for. We don't have to talk unless he brings out like a Trump comic book, then maybe we'll talk a little bit Trump there, which he needs to get on. Trump needs to release a manga. If he releases a manga, it's over. Or a coloring book.
I think I have his coloring book.
You do have Trump's coloring book?
Yeah, I think I do.
That's awesome. But we do have to jump out of here. Everybody, again, like what you heard. If you like what you heard today, give us a subscription over there on YouTube. Follow us over on Twix. Go look for us everywhere at the Alex Cuesta Show. And we'll be back next week, as we always are, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. So long.